Late Night Grin. Also, what does that name mean?
It all began when the Grin went gold. On August 27, 2024, the Late Night Grin took the unprecedented step of putting their content behind a paywall. They said it couldn't be done. They called them insane. But Hulbert held firm that he possessed the Midas touch. Unfortunately, he was correct. Millions of new members joined. Thousands of matches needed to be reviewed. Hundreds of raving fans set up a temporary camp outside his humble abode. Joe was starting to crack under the immense pressure. A desperate Hulbert looked to change his fortunes, inviting good friend Ibou to join him for 3 recording sessions in September 2024. What you're about to see are these sessions in full, unedited, and preserved to the highest quality possible. Immediately dubbed The Incident by a shocked public, these are regarded as the most infamous tapes in the world today. So grab your glasses and pour along, because things are about to get wild. Remember, what happens at the wine sessions stays at the wine sessions. We asked the members of the Late Night Grin for comment on The Incident. These are the responses from those who chose to go on the record.
You're gonna do the whole background thing and make sure that I'm anonymous, or you can't have anybody know that what I'm about to talk to you is pretty serious stuff here.
The Incident?
Whoa, The Incident.
The Incident?
I'm so glad that you're bringing up The Incident.
I was pretty sure that everyone that I did this with knew that I was under an NDA. I mean, I was pretty sure that everyone signed an NDA.
Yeah, you want to know about The Incident? I was there.
Look, it never should have.
It's too much, man.
Why aren't you on the shows anymore?
It was a pretty sticky situation. I can't really get into it too much, obviously.
But now that you bring up The Incident, I can say the real reason why I'm not on the shows anymore.
I've seen a lot of shit. I've been bitten by dogs.
I do enjoy joking about serious matters on, Twitter.
I can't believe what really happened that night.
I mean, for Christ's sake, we do those 9/11 jokes and Benny's.
I prefer not to comment on it.
We can't even laugh at it.
I don't really feel comfortable even talking about it. I mean, I was involved. I knew about it going on at least, but
Beats anything
I'm worried about my well-being.
that has ever happened in my entire life.
I've been trying to really erase that from my memory.
I blocked it out in my head because of all that happened and all the casualties. And
I've lost my job.
I mean, I don't know what you want.
Can't pay my mortgage.
Hold on. Fuck is that?
Fuck. Shit. Fuck.
I might be arrested.
No, I don't know about an incident. No.
Matt warned him, man.
I told him not to get on the boat.
Sure never came to this. But here we are now, and we're fucking stuck with it.
I'm talking to this guy, right? He's showing me his big board.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, you could have had the Samoan werewolf Jacob Fatu, and you picked Ilya Dragunov. What was this dude talking about, man? It's ridiculous. Absolutely outrageous.
Look, I love me some Ilya Dragunov. I think he's a great wrestler. He had some good matches with Walter, right? He does a nice chop. He has a good forearm.
Yeah.
I know he nods and bobbles his head a lot, Joe, and I know it makes you a little uncomfortable. He does the conducting thing. It's a bit much, but I like Ilya. would I draft him over over Jacob Fatu? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
What
this
about
guy's
Samoa Joe?
I mean, I'll take Samoa Joe any era, but except maybe like his early Fed run, you know.
Yeah.
Or the period where he had like the cock in his face, you know, on TNA.
I will say,
What's up?
Ilya Dragunov, Samoa Joe would be sick, dude.
That'd be amazing. Could you
Yeah.
imagine like 05 Joe versus Ilya? Like that'd be, my God.
That sounds like some Hammerstein ballroom shit, doesn't it?
Cage match would love that.
Oh yeah, 9.12.
Yeah, Dave would go like 4 3/4 on it. That's his go-to rating now for like everything, you know.
He's a beast. I mean, I don't really agree with any of his ratings, but
no,
I just like reading them.
Oh, they rock. They rock. I said this before on a past Hulbert House show. Like his old scores pop me. You know, people always talk about how like his scores are supposed to be able to point you in the direction of things, right? And that's not true at all for the modern day at all, right? But when you watch old stuff and you're like looking through cards and things, and it says WON 3 3/4, that comes in handy.
Yeah.
You know, it really does come in handy.
It does. You know, I like the idea that in 30 years, someone will be doing like an AEW project and they'll make a spreadsheet of all the Meltzer matches. And it'll be like Jericho versus Adam Cole.
Exactly. 4 stars or some shit. You know, like, come on, dude. I think he gave this week's Orange Cassidy deal. I think he gave that 4 stars. I think he did.
Orange Cassidy? He's a good wrestler.
He's pretty good. Yeah.
Would you take him over Ilya Dragunov?
Where am I running this promotion?
Good question. Memphis.
If it's Memphis, Ilya Dragunov's the heel in my light heavyweight division. You know, I lean into the local xenophobia. You know, and just kind of, you know, nothing too crazy. Just have Ilya like say America sucks. You know, and just.
I never can tell if I'm getting like worked by Orange or not, because sometimes he'll throw like really bad punches. And I'll go, they're really bad punches. But then I go to myself, maybe they were supposed to be bad punches. You know, I can never figure it out. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit. I'm not sure.
Orange Cassidy wrestled on the 91st anniversary show on CMLL in Arena, Mexico. Really fascinating performance. He was on the heel team. And like his idea of heel work was just like doing the like Orange Cassidy like traditional shtick, but in this kind of like taking the piss kind of way, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, like he's doing
that is actually interesting. Yes.
Yeah, because like he's doing the pocket stuff, but he's not trying to make it cute and like make you laugh. It's kind of he wants you to groan and be like, "What the fuck is this?" And it worked. They were like, "Oh, what's this guy doing?" You know, like he's like refusing to engage in lockups, and he's kind of just I don't know. He's just doing it in a way that he wants to needle at you. It was kind of subtle. It was experimental.
Do you think he could do that in the All Elite Fleet?
No. That fan base likes that type of thing, so they're not gonna like be annoyed at it. You know, they're there to play along.
They are. The Moxley stuff has been frustrating in that regard because John Moxley is doing honest to God professional wrestling.
Yeah,
and
yes, he is.
They don't seem to know what to do with it. I mean, that angle last week with Private Party, they were dead silent. That was a great angle, I thought, but.
What it really is there's losers in the building, Joe, and they don't like know how to react to actual like real shit. You know, they're just there to chant, "This is awesome." You know, it's like John is trying to make you feel something and feel something for your heroes, and maybe it's because you know Private Party's been so damaged, so that probably does affect something too. But that was a tremendous angle. He used a hammer, you know, and he's like he's doing something really heinous here, and he's an asshole about it, and the fans are just kind of like sitting there and. You know, they're just waiting for the next moment to kind of just chant Moxley because he's like so cool.
What do you do? Because it's well established that I don't make any sound at wrestling shows, right? I don't move.
Right.
Do you go old school? Do you like react to it like you're a grandma at Crockett? Like, how do you respond to wrestling live?
Well, the last wrestling show I was at, my biggest audible negative reaction was when Don Callis walked in front of me and I screamed, "Fuck you, Don! You fucking suck! Fuck you!" And I gave him a middle finger and he just looked at me and smirked because he's like walking around the ring. He stops right in front of me to try to intimidate me. And I'm just like, "Fuck you, Don! Fuck you!" And he just kind of like chuckles a bit and like keeps walking. So I guess that's your answer. You know?
Do you think he's any good, Don Callis?
No, but he's pouring himself. He was good in 2021.
I've spent the last 7 minutes building up the courage to do that without laughing, and I got like 1 second into it. And I couldn't.
Could you? It would have only been funnier if you were in a robe, right? And like, you know what would have been funnier is if you poured like a vague substance drink that was like purple or reddish, and you didn't show it on camera, so we could assume it's wine, right? And you just pulled the glass up out of frame, and you're just like, tell me more about Don.
I was torn between that, but the image of pouring one of these I thought was just too much. Yeah.
I gotta say, and I don't want to ruin it because then people are gonna start using it, but that Undertaker wine picture is underrated. That's underused. Yeah.
It is. I mean, have you ever seen that full thing, the Broken Skull?
No, what was going on there?
Well, they do one of them, and it's when Mark's being really serious about life and all that. And he's talking about the integrity of the Undertaker. And then they do another one after the documentary comes out, and they just get absolutely hammered. It's awesome. They get absolutely destroyed. They just get drunk doing this Derby Network show. They don't have anything of insight to say, but it's very funny to listen to.
So they went full to Shannon Sharp. Like they just...
Oh, yeah.
On one of his shows, just pouring it out.
Well, the problem with you and I is we're assholes. And we actually enjoy listening to, like, me and Mark talk about psychology and stuff like that,
Oh, it's the best. He'll say all these things that, like, he never did in his matches, and you're like, man, what a fucking beast,
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like you had such a specific gimmick, Undertaker. Like, you had such a specific gimmick that worked for specific reasons, and he's talking about, like, I just need to see more Babyface fire, and see more fucking these kids don't know how to fucking work, and build to their match and and I'm like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess.
The craziest example of that is Sid, God rest his soul, who there's a shoot interview clip where he's talking about like explaining psychology to like Benoit and Malenko, which is so sick because it suggests that he has like no idea of his reputation as a wrestler. He's like completely oblivious to it, like. What a beast.
Speaking of Benoit Malenko, they're I don't know how much of their Japan work you've seen. It's so sick, dude. They just have their heads down. They're pretending like they wrestle like nobody's there, but it's so surgical and snappy and like hard and well executed that like it's the most like I'm wrestling for nobody, like 4-star wrestling, if that makes any sense.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that was kind of, if we were going down this road this early, but that was kind of his style, though, right? He was very much, that was his approach. He was very, like, sort of clinical.
He's not like trying to take you on an emotional journey, really. He's just wrestling really fucking well.
Well, that's something you and I, so we're going to talk about wine a lot tonight, folks, but not actual wine, of course, but wine as it relates to professional wrestling.
Right.
And I think this has been a journey that we've been on.
Yeah. We've been holding this.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of range to wine wrestling, which we'll discover and discuss over tonight's program. But I just think there is something to be said at this point in our lives. Mm-hmm. We want to just see stuff that just actually looks a way that we enjoy, like forget the structure, the psychology, and all of that stuff, story, theater, selling. I just want to like look at it and go, well, that looks good. That's what I want at this point in my life.
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to see people doing forward whirls,
No.
I just,
and there's a snap that needs to be there.
Yeah. There's certain moves that can never be part of wine wrestling.
True. Poison Rana.
Yeah, like I like a good Poison Rana.
So do I.
Io Sky did it once. I think she did it on Utami, I think.
We'll get ahead of ourselves, but she's a wine wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the way she fires at the people with the high tech,
She has that fluidity.
Yeah.
Watch her run the ropes.
You can be, because some people might confuse. Are you guys saying you want for someone to be a wine wrestler, they have to be boring? No, you have to, you can be fluid. You can, you can be dynamic, but in a certain way,
Yeah, it's so graceful.
graceful.
Yeah.
But again, it has to be tight. It has to be snug.
Yeah.
Don't give me like. I don't think anyone from Rev Pro can ever be a wine wrestler.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it just doesn't work, does it? And there could be other types of good wrestlers. You know, you could have, like, I've spoke to you before about barbecue wrestlers. You know, like the SummerSlam was a barbecue card. It was like there was not really much wine to be had there, but you could have some fun. Maybe you get some food in, perhaps. You know, there's like, you know, takeout for wrestlers.
That's a great point. SummerSlam was you throw something on the grill.
Yeah.
You have a couple hot dogs. You know,
there you go. Yes.
It's hot dog wrestling. It's burger wrestling. You know, you're playing "This Is How We Do It" by Montel Jordan. You know, on a big speaker as Liv kisses down. You know,
what a visual that is, dude.
This is how we doing on Friday night. And you just kind of, you have your shades on, you have your shorts and your Hawaiian shirt. You got a hot dog in your hand with all kinds of random sauces on it. You know, you see Sami Zayn eat a spear to conclude a 2 3/4 star match, and you're like, well, good for Braun Breaker. You know, he should have fucking won that match.
That was a weird little match. That was weird little match. They completely redeemed it with the
that Raw deal was beautiful.
Braun Breaker is such an interesting prospect because to say there's a ton of overlap with, you know, his father and his uncle would be an understatement. There's a ton of Steiner there, like quite literally, you know, in the way he wrestles. But he's got that on one side, but then on the other side, he's got that like performance center, like textbook stuff they do, you know, where it's like the guys have to break out of doing stuff like they didn't have a manual. And that is an insane thing to combine because Steiner wrestling is like the complete opposite end of the spectrum where everything looks like it could kill someone. So it's very interesting prospect. The end game could be him being like an all-timer, to be honest. But we'll see.
Pretty tremendous. You want to hear something cool? I revealed this on a Raw review, Joe. You know what he's internally viewed as? This will pop you. The ace of Monday Night Raw.
The ace?
Yeah, the ace of Monday Night Raw. Yeah.
So who would be the other contenders for the ace of Monday Night Raw? Like Pete Dunne or someone?
I mean, you would think like Sami Zayn or Drew Mack or Gunther or something. It's him. And what makes it even cooler is, so they have an internal ranking of baby faces and heels. He's on neither. And I asked why. And they told me that Braun Breaker is not a baby face and Braun Breaker is not a heel.
He's just Braun Breaker.
He's the ace. He is 2022 Moxley in their mind in terms of positioning.
That's interesting, that is. I haven't watched it closely, so I'm more interested than anything else.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I got told that, and I was like, that's fascinating. Then I watched on the last week's Monday Night Raw, Joe, and Jey Uso cuts the promo, and Braun comes out with this big gaudy jacket. It's the Rick Steiner jacket that says "Beware of Dog."
Oh yeah,
and he has the belt, and he just looks like the man, you know. And he's walking out there with his noodle theme song, and he's cutting his promo about how like, I made it to this far and I didn't use my family. I didn't use my family's name. I had my own name. I got everything myself. And he grabs the belt and he picks it up. And it just feels like those types of wrestlers that are marks for their belts, very Taz and John Moxley style. And he has it right by his face. He's holding it up and he says, I fight for this belt and it fights for me. And I started pumping my chest, Joe. I got to be honest with you. I started jumping up and down, you know. I was like, oh man, this is incredible. I'm trying to think of what this reminds me of, because RVD was the ace, really, of ECW.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but he was never the world champion. But he was the man.
That's the only thing with the ace. I guess by ace they just mean what you referenced about. He's like the guy that isn't baby or heel. He can wrestle anyone based on just the fact that he's the man. Basically, the idea. You know, kind of like people forget this now, but before the Horseman, that's what Flair was, right? He would be Ric Flair, and he would just turn up different parts of his own personality, whether he was working a baby or a heel. I
depending
guess
on the
that's the
opponent.
idea. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
it's just really interesting to me, and it frames him as somebody who's a star on the show, even though he's gonna ascend even higher. So it's
Right.
really interesting. It's really interesting. He's also being portrayed as a guy who could fuck up anyone on Raw, which is really cool because he's the IC champion, and that element of it makes it kind of feel like New Japan in its 2010s heyday when the two top belts were equal.
Who do you think wins the world's title first, him or Jacob? Because I mean, they're the two. When you look at young, fresh faces on that roster, I mean, they're the two guys, right? That's one A, one B to me, anyway.
I'm glad you told me that because I think I might have told you this. An NXT wrestler or former NXT, I can't. I was told by someone in WWE. I was told by someone in WWE. I pulled the line up that they basically, like, the word going around, like, coming out of the draft was like, basically Jacob and Braun are the big two. They're the rookie monsters, so to speak.
Yeah.
They're the next ones. And they teased Jacob and Roman last week. They've teased Jacob and Cody a few weeks before that, when Cody actively called him out and said, "Why don't you challenge me for this world title?" And then this last week on SmackDown in the 6-person tag, they wouldn't let you see Jacob and Kevin Owens touch.
Right.
And then when the match descends into madness, they're like scrapping on the outside, and it's like very wild. And the point I'm making is the 3 of the 4 top push wrestlers on SmackDown, they've kind of had him face off with them, and it's very clear with his positioning where they see him. So yeah, him and Braun are the big two when it comes to that. Who wins the world title first is kind of difficult,
right?
But
it's
what
circumstantial, right? Really,
what I was told about the IC title is this: from Gunther onward, the mentality is any first-time title holder of that belt is somebody that has to win a world title like subsequently afterwards within the next year and a half, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was kind of like that's what it was before when Shawn and Brett held it.
Yep.
Gunther used that belt, and it basically Gunther acquired all the skills needed for a WWE main event world champion in the modern day. And then once he was fully formed in that respect, he dropped the belt and then moved on to the next thing. And they want the same thing with Braun Breaker. So basically, it's almost one of those things where they want it to be like, this belt means it's a guarantee you are now going to win the world title.
Yeah, I think that's important to what kind of the role the belt is supposed to play, right? I think that's important to reestablish that. It's interesting. I think with Cena presumably winning the belt at WrestleMania, which I think is what's going to happen, you have a babyface that's ripe for the picking, though, right? In terms of one of those two monsters. One of those two monsters could very easily kill John Cena.
When you said Cena winning the world title, I kind of my body twitched a little bit. I was like, but that does mean yes. When like Braun kills him or like someone else kills him, like that'd be great. Now, do you do that before Cena's retirement, or do you have Cena's retirement be when he drops the belt to that one of those two young guys?
I would do that pretty soon after Mania, the killing, and then I would have Cena do a more sort of, sort of a Sting-esque, like I'm friendly farewell. Yeah.
So then, all I know is in the road to winning the belt, I think he should be. Because here's the thing: part of why Cena isn't that appealing to me these days is because there isn't much of a Cena rub anymore because he's lost to everybody.
Yeah.
The Super Cena veneer has been dead for almost a decade.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that he was unstoppable. But if you rehabilitate that and restore the value in beating John Cena, then I can get interested because then you can make somebody. But this guy lost to Austin Theory and Solo Sikoa last year.
He did. You're going to have to tell that story gradually, too. You're going to have to, if I had the pencil, which I may by that point, I don't know, this is in the future, but if I had the pencil, like, I think you should tell the story of him, like, getting back into a rhythm and, like, figuring it out again and try wrestling, adjusting his style and stuff like that. I think that could be money,
Exactly. So, which is why the angle you take is basically, I'm going to do my best to show I can still hang.
Yeah.
And I'm going to win that world title one more time and cement myself.
Yes.
And or die trying. And then John Cena gets his confidence back with some preliminary wins here and there. You get him an 8-minute win on TV against fucking Pete Dunne. You get him. I know you're gonna laugh at that, but that feels like a realistic, doable, viable, and totally fine. You know what I mean? Like
Pete's doing
Dunne.
pretty good for himself, dude. Shout out to Pete Dunne.
He's on TV a lot now. It's kind of, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know how to feel about it, because I think, I don't know if it was a Hulbert house show where I said this, but I used to like Pete Dunne, right? And he's a good wrestler, and I'd rather him on the show all over the show than Miz, right? But like I used to be the guy to fight for him against like you and stuff, right? But now I feel like he's all over Raw and like NXT. Like I blink and it's like we're backstage here with Pete Dunne. I'm like, didn't you talk to him like an hour ago? Like what's going on?
Yeah, is he getting over? Like, what's the reaction to him? Like,
they did the WWE trick where they kind of held the audience's hand and said, "This is what you chant when he's out here." So that his matches have heat, and so now they just chant Butch at him, and then he does the thing where he looks around at the fans and he covers his ears and he's like, "No, no," and then he like, he'll do the yes kicks and they'll chant Butch with them and stuff, and he's like pissed off about it, and so it's a trick to give his matches heat, essentially, I mean
that works.
Yeah.
I kind of thought the New Catch Republic was a good role for those guys, but obviously they got hurt, right? So this is a shame.
I prefer that, and I thought they were actually like surprisingly like really strong at like the 10-minute TV match.
Yeah.
But yeah, now instead he's just kind of undercard heel Pete Dunne, who just has those OTT ICW progress ass matches on Raw that it's like, okay.
So circling back to the Cena Bron Jacob thing we built.
Okay.
I want to ask you, because you're a big Bron fan, and I like Bron, but you're a bigger fan. So I want to ask you if you think I'm off base here.
His promo work is really coming along. He's the man.
Oh no, I've seen enough to believe that, and his confidence is there. But John Cena specifically, do you agree with my read that Jacob is a much more natural opponent for John than Bron?
Wrestling wise, of course it is.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I know if I was just misreading that. Okay, cool.
No, Jacob's more first of all, he's more experienced and more refined on top in a control segment. Right. And so if a match calls for John Cena to get beat up for 7 minutes, Jacob will do much better at that than Braun Breaker would.
Yeah. Jacob is, and I don't like to use the worker talk because I've never worked, right? But Jacob appears to my eyes to be.
Some would say that these late night Grin sessions, this is,
I've said that before, but I don't know.
We're out here working and rocking the house,
But to my eye, Jacob appears to be one of the most gifted guys in the business in that regard, because if you just watch his stuff in slow-mo, like his moonsault, or even that thing he did to Ciampa the other day, I sent it to the Great Confirmed Shoot, and he pointed it out to me. He often isn't touching guys, and it looks like he's killing them. I mean, that is, and again, that isn't my thing to worry about. I'm not the one in there wrestling him yet, but that's the thing that they'll often say about the Samoan guys, and he appears to have taken it to a new level because his stuff looks absolutely devastating, like ridiculously so.
He's only in his early 30s,
right? He's a freak, dude.
That shouldn't be that crazy, but like I'm so used to everyone in wrestling that's on TV now to be like 38 or more, like that's everybody's fucking old, And in WWE, like supposed new guys, LA Knight and Damian Priest are 40. So I'm thinking about how like this guy is positioned so well, and he's like 33 or whatever he is, and I'm like, my goodness, this dude is he's gonna be running this shit,
I think so. As long as he stays out of trouble, right? He should be fine. Because my understanding is the boys love him. Mm-hmm. It's just that's a different thing to stay out of trouble.
Right. Have you been seeing this new thing I've been doing on the timeline that I'm really bullish on? That like it gets mild pushback, but I'm just tripling down on it, which is that they should fire Austin Theory.
You saying it that bluntly too?
I've been so anytime I find a big blue check WWE fan account that just tweets like, what should be the next step for Austin Theory? Or should Austin Theory turn babyface, or should they push Austin Theory? Or is Austin Theory the next WWE champion? I just quote like they should just fire him. And my take is that the last time I wrote it was very severe. I wrote they should let him go, break his heart, surprise him, test his gangster, and if he comes back to you, then he comes back to you. But if he doesn't come back to you, he wasn't worth it anyway. And I in another one I said that basically they should force him to claw his way back to WWE because as harsh as this sounds, he's 26, he's treading water, and if you leave him as is, what is he really going to do for you or become? And so my idea was you force the evolution by holding the baby over the water, or whatever the analogy you want to use. You drop them, and if they learn how to fly, they'll fly, or they'll just splat on the ground. And in his case, it's like, okay, let's see what's really inside of him. Fire the fucking kid. And if he gets pissed off, if he's heartbroken, if he's taken aback, and he grinds and he goes to TNA or he goes to New Japan or wherever he goes to, and he fights his way back to you, a 30-year-old man, a refined wrestler, someone ready and hungry, then you got somebody. And so I just took it as, because I think sometimes when you're on the main roster in your 20s, even though there's not many of those people, sometimes you just think shit is sweet. And shit is not that. And shit is not that sweet, bro. A lot of these wrestlers have to grind, and the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people had to fucking they've lived 7 lifetimes before they even made it to WWE, let alone be on a TV position. Think about the life they've lived and experienced for a Chelsea Green and what she's done. She's been everywhere. When you really think about it, she's 32 years old, but she's been everywhere. She's done everything. She's in Stardom. She was in Lucha Underground, and she was in just everywhere, TNA. And so it's like, this kid does some Evolve and some local indies, and then he gets in because they like his look and his body, and he's on the main roster being pushed at 24. And again, I'm all for pushing young talent, but again, if you're treading water to this degree, I just genuinely, I would legitimately consider punching the guy in the mouth, figuratively, by firing him and seeing what happens.
I'm torn on it because I think so. Basically, him and Waller are slotted as the bumping heels on SmackDown,
which is fine.
What I'm torn on it from a talent appraisal point of view is I'm not sure if I should be impressed by how willingly he's adjusted and accepted that role,
because he was the chosen one before that,
right? Or be alarmed by how natural he feels as oh my god, look how funny that guy fell down. One of those heels.
That's a good point, because if he was really a star and he was doing that, the commentary we could be, I can't believe this is what they have this guy doing.
Right. And I guess that does exist some places on the internet. It's always a dangerous thing. When we did Grin Grappler, Kurt Hennig, we talked about that at length, the fine line between making a show of your bumps and just slotting yourself in the same position forever. Dolph learned that lesson, right?
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to do.
I thought about this, because a good point on this, Joe. There's been times where Dragon Lee is just, LWO guy number 3 in an angle, right? And because he jumps off the page just visually with his look and his mask and his outfit and who he is, when he's running out there with Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde to fight the Judgment Day guys, I'm like, hey, that's Dragon Lee. That's Dragon Lee. He is a somebody. You know what I mean? Rather than, oh, that's just nondescript, Latino guy number 5. And so compare that and juxtapose that with Austin Theory, like you just said, that's just the next jackass who's catching an RKO.
Wrestling is a very unique beast in that sometimes you can be too good for your own good. And you can be so capable of playing different roles that actually it costs you. Now, this isn't so much about Austin Theory. What I mean by this is, if you're a booker and you've got Dragon Lee, you say this guy can get them to respond to him just by going out there and putting a guy over, because he'll get his stuff in and his stuff looks spectacular. Now, if he can do that, what is the booker's, what's his necessity to actually assist that wrestler creatively? Here's an example of on a higher level. Kevin Owens is talented enough to be the world's champion 6 times over. We both agree on this, right?
Yes.
But the show is actually better for Kevin playing the more difficult roles around that guy,
because those roles need filling, and there's guys who cannot really pull that off as good.
Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't. We were talking about Bron Breakker and Jacob Fatu a minute ago. Neither of those guys can just exist as dudes on the roster, right? No. They can't just be guys that have matches.
They have to be forces of nature,
right? And that's an inch. Recently in the news, last week, I guess now in the news, Miro.
Yes, great example.
Great talent, but he cannot just kind of live on the roster as a guy who goes 50-50. You have to actually push Miro. So then the question becomes, do I have the space to push Miro?
Bobby Lashley's a similar guy.
Perfect, yeah.
Bobby's had to be used the same way.
Right. And Bobby, the question for WWE seemed to become, do we feel like we have the space to push to use him the way he needs to be used? Because he's not as valuable just doing like, side missions and stuff.
It's why the territory system, like not being a thing, is tough for certain people. And it's also why the 3 to 5 year contracts that everybody signs is something that doesn't work for every wrestler. Because Miro and the God's Champion deal, that's the type of gimmick you show up in a territory. You introduce that gimmick to the audience. You develop it. You craft it. You squash people. You win a belt. You hold the belt for a couple months. You lose to somebody and get the fuck out.
Yes.
That's what that should be.
Which is basically what he did, but in a very...
he reached the end of his territory run and then just kind of remained under contract for like 3 more years.
Yeah.
And in a perfect world, in a different world, shout out to the show, different world, he loses to Sammy Guevara, and then he just goes to like Noah or some shit,
Right.
And then just literally does the exact same thing over there, and wins the GHC National Championship or some shit, and then he loses it to Elio Del Dr. Wagner Jr., and then he just gets out of there, So
I agree. I mean, he's a really talented guy. I'm both fellas we just talked about, but Miro in particular we were discussing. I'm, as a fan of his work, I'm quietly encouraged by him requesting his release because it suggests he actually does want to wrestle, which I'll be completely real with you, bro. I thought he was done, to be honest with you. Like, he had like 3 years left on his deal or some shit. Like, I was just going to chill, But
that's the thing. It's like, Joe, he makes 7-figure money.
So he obviously wants to work because, I mean, Tony would just let him sit at home probably.
So that's what I was going to say. He makes 7-figure money. And this is a guy who could have just continued to get those checks and just hang out and be like, oh, who gives a fuck? I'm not taking any bumps and I'm getting paid exorbitant amounts of money.
Right.
Him requesting it suggests what you say it does, which is that he wants to work, but I have a different belief.
What's that belief?
The compound. I think that, because here's the deal. With all these contractual reports, Joe, there's a lot of like double speak or coded language. And a lot of wrestling fans are incapable of identifying these bits of coded language and cutting through and understanding what's actually happening. And that's fine because they're not privy to the information and the behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, sip your wine there because you're gonna have to strap in here. Here's the deal, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
If he's requesting his release, it's really what's actually happening. I haven't been outright told this, but I'm very firm on it. I believe his agent has reached out to Nick Khan and WWE. And I think he gauged their interest and basically got a confirmation that yes, I think he reached out and said, hey, if I'm able to get out of this deal, would you sign me? And how much money would you give me to come over there? And I think they made it clear, them being the company to his agent, yeah, we'd love to have you. Hunter's a big fan. We'd pay you X amount of dollars. Try to get out of your deal.
Yeah.
He said, okay, cool, I'm going to request. Wrestlers rarely request releases or exits from their contract without at least a vague understanding and idea of what they're going to do next and where they're going to land.
Well, I agree. My one counter would be Miro is a unique cat. Very unique.
He's a very unique person.
Yeah, but generally, yes, totally. I agree completely.
Strange in some respects.
Yeah,
but even an out there, mercurial, eclectic man like Miroslav Barnyshev,
still likes money.
And why would you just straight up say, I don't want guaranteed money anymore?
What would it be? What would be the creative in WWE? What do you think?
I think he'd be in the burgeoning big boys division. I think that's a landing spot for him.
This is going to sound crazy.
Okay.
I'm not pitching it. I'm asking what you think.
Okay. I actually have a couple of WWE ideas.
Him being exactly what you just described as a territory heel on the CW. I'm being serious. Like, straight up. No, I know that's, but think about it seriously. Look at the dudes on that roster. Think about what he's been doing for the last 2 years, which is, not much. I'm not pitching it as like this is a good idea, But in some ways, would it not be smart to put him in a place where he would be a big fish rather than like? I don't know, man. Like he's not done it. He's been very protected for obvious reasons.
So
You know,
look, him running the God's champion thing over there would work 100%.
yeah,
And he'd also have the freedom to get even wackier with it. Because here's the thing:
yes.
there'd be times where he was trending towards just getting really out there, and he'd kind of get pulled back in before it really went there. Like he'd be in like this white fucking zone or space or something, and he'd just be like, "Tell me, God, why have you forsaken me? Why?" And you're like, "What's happening here? Is this like a Sean O'Hare vignette from 2003?" And you're like, "Okay," but in NXT. They'd shoot a vignette, Joe, where he's like walking through the gates of heaven or something.
They definitely would, yeah.
You know, he would literally. They probably shoot a vignette where he's just like, just show me a sign, give me an answer, God, and a feather would fall from the sky and land on his feet, and he'd be like, he has spoken to me.
And imagine the way that the Performance Center would respond to him, dude.
Oh my God, they treat him like he was Jesus.
Right. So you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying it's the idea. I'm just saying he's an interesting. He's a big star, but he's not so big that those things are impossible. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, the thing is, I think he himself would. It's tough because, you know, Dave always spoke extensively about wrestlers who, within AEW, didn't really respect the institution and saw it as inferior to WWE, and as a result, would kind of scoff at creative or turn their nose up at pitches. And that those same people would be the same people that, you know, agree to do some of the worst stuff Vince McMahon has ever suggested.
Right.
And Miro was always one of those people he was talking about. And so I think about that because the Miro I know would be like, NXT, what the fuck? I'm above NXT. But it is WWE. And if what Dave's saying is 100% true, then maybe you would think in theory he'd be like, oh, yeah, well, you know, I'll trust the process here. So I don't know. I really don't know. I know this. I know that if he was clanging and banging and then hitting the post with guys like Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman and Braun Breaker, I'd love that very, very much. If he was going toe-to-toe with Gunther and they set something up, a battle of nations here, Bulgaria versus Austria, Gunther versus Miro, God's champion versus the ring general, I can get into that. You know what I mean? Miro has that kind of kick pad, choppy style post WWE. He could fit right in there. You know, you get the camel clutch going versus the Boston Crab.
I'd do that, and I would then settle in. This is my actual pitch, and I'm going to be honest. I know nothing. You know, I don't know nothing about this. This is my actual guess. Who re-signed with the WWF last week?
Sheamus.
Wouldn't it be great for Sheamus at this point in his career to have a tag team partner to extend out the final chapter of his career? And wouldn't it be great if it could be one of his best friends?
Oh, baby. That sounds awesome. You know, there's a tag team in New Japan, Joe, in the 90s.
There is?
Yeah, a couple of them. There's one called the Hellraisers.
Oh, yeah.
You know what men comprised of the Hellraisers, Joe?
Who was the Hellraisers? Tell me.
Unless I'm totally like misremembering, it was Road Warrior Hawk and Kensuke Sasaki.
Yeah.
Now, does that not sound like some Hellraisers there, Joe?
It sounds like some Hellraisers to me, bro.
It sounds like some guys that when they walk out, business picks up, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I'm pretty sure you're correct because that was when it was like, what did they call Kensuke in that team? Like Power Warrior or some shit?
Power Warrior. Power Warrior.
It used to be better.
It used to be better, Joe. I'm watching these early tags from a man named Junji Harada, who's just a big, burly, barrel-chested Japanese man, which would basically describe about 45 people in the business at the time in Japan.
Yeah.
But Harada, he was just an undercard guy who was big, you know, and eventually what got him over fully was they gave him a mask, and he was called Super Strong Machine.
Of course, yes. I'm familiar.
Yes. What a fucking beast, you know?
It used to be better.
I've been watching 1997 New Japan, Joe, if you haven't noticed. And
I have noticed.
You know, at first I thought I'm going to just... Here's the thing. I've watched this material before. At least the big bullet point stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was going through New Japan in the 90s, I watched it based on what I could find. And I basically watched everything on New Japan World. I watched everything I could find on Daily Motion. And I watched everything I could find on Billy. And so with those three outlets, I was able to see all the historically important stuff from these years, right? but a lot of stuff that is considered actively good to great still slipped through the cracks because this never seemed great and important historically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like a sick Observer 4.25 like Liger tag from like February will be missing, but like his most important title defense from a month later will be on there.
Of
Like, on all
course.
these things.
Yeah.
The point I'm getting at is I've seen the big highlights of all these years, and I'm aware of like other happenings without having the footage, the access to the footage. And so now with the lovely resource that's Archive, I decided I'm going to peruse 1997-98. Really big fan of this period, and I told myself I'm going to just I'll watch the G1. I'll watch the G1 final. I'll watch some some junior stuff, some Otani. And then I found myself watching an entire tour from like February. Like I'm talking like the Puro tours they do, Joe, where it's like the day after day after. I watched an entire tour, match by match. And
well, is this what happens to us when we get old, where you like the vibe of a promotion at a certain time, and then it becomes almost more appealing to watch the small steps along the way, the littler shows are almost more. There's a charm to them because it's stuff. It feels like hidden gems, right? It's like stuff you shouldn't be seeing. Almost, it's cool.
Yeah, and then when it gets to those big bullet point matches that I've already seen, seeing it now in the context, it's just
Yeah.
Now I gotta pour some wine. It's like
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm nowhere near as familiar on that stuff. I've said to you before, 90s New Japan is that's a blind spot I'd like to redeem. But I do definitely co-sign the mentality of once you've seen the epics of each era, you become increasingly enticed by like, this is just the wrestling. This is like any given night of New Japan in '97. That kind of vibe.
Yeah,
like if I bought a ticket, this is what I may get.
And what I love about it is when your favorites come out.
Yeah.
In those tags, you get the hits from them. And when you get them in tag format, it almost feels like this like really fun, neat house show you paid a ticket for. Example, I watched the match, Joe. There's a stable at this time called the Heisei Ishingun. They're basically, Joe, a bunch of angry, middle-aged Japanese shooters in karate gi.
Based.
And there's just 5 of these motherfuckers in like these fucking purple gis. And in the main event in Korakuen Hall, they're facing Shinya Hashimoto, Super Strong Machine, Kensuke Sasaki,
oh my God,
Satoshi Kojima, and Manabu Nakanishi.
Oh my God.
And these guys are walking out there. Everybody has super large trap muscles and chests. And it's just a bunch of bad motherfuckers ready there to fight in Korakuen Hall, right? And if this was a modern day, this would be like, I don't know how to explain. It would be very like the formula for this type of 10-man tag in a tour is like very like specific, and it's very curated, and it's like familiar, right?
Yep.
And you'd get that kind of familiar crowd pleasing 3.25. And here's the thing. We got a crowd pleasing 3.25, but not in like the way of like modern days, if that makes any sense.
And that is what the more that stuff has a pattern, that's what I think we like latch onto. The idea that something feels more alive and isn't like just literally, because those Road 2 tags, to your point, like they have to be almost at this point just like a routine, right? Splashes in the corner,
right.
Knock him off the apron, and that's fine. Those matches are fun, but when you go back, you do realize there's a lot more. It feels a lot more organic, and stuff's actually happening in real time. It's very different.
What you don't really get in the exact perfectly executed way was like, now we get the waterfall in like a multi-man where like guy comes in, does their move, guy comes in, does their move, guy comes in, right? So there's versions of waterfalls in these matches, right? But it's less like we work this out in the back and it's going to be this perfect thing. And I don't mind. I like waterfalls. They're like usually really cool. But like here, it'll just be more so like the referee is like telling like the guy to like break the hold in the corner for Hashimoto because he's exceeded 5 seconds and he won't break it. And then Sasaki will just walk in the ring and like slap a guy.
Yeah.
And then the ref's like, no, get back to your corner. And he's like, no, fuck you. He hasn't broken the hold. And then like another guy from the other side runs in and punches Sasaki, and everyone runs in. They're all brawling and shit. Referee clears it out, and Hashimoto just does a spinning kick and the match is over. And you're like, oh shit, just a weird finish like that.
Sometimes, and this is where we can go in a million directions with this, but sometimes watching stuff like that reminds you of like what you're actually trying to achieve with a match, which is like hook me as a fan. As a fan, I shouldn't really have my checklist out. I should be watching my favorite wrestlers react the way I believe they should react to these things, right? That's like we talk about this with angles a lot, where it's like sometimes it feels like angles are being done in a way of just like I've done it, everyone. You can tick it off. I've built the match. It's like, well, no, but that's not really what you're trying to do to me emotionally as a fan. You actually want to make me believe it for a second. You want to actually convince me.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because when I watched that Big Ten, man, I'm expecting the match to hit certain like notes in the trajectory of the match before it ends, but it didn't. It just kind of like had flashes of really cool interactions and then just kind of ended. And I was like, oh shit! And I had a great time. And like by conventional rating standards, I can't give it more than like maybe a 3.25. But it just felt so lived in. It felt so real. It felt so natural. It was really cool. It was hot, you know. And I was just like, man, that was fucking awesome, you know.
Sometimes matches can just end, you know. I mean, I think, like, and again, you know, but I think there's an increasing thought process that like every match needs to have like its perfect like exit route, and it's like you can actually train the audience that sometimes the guy's just going to hit the move and win, so that then when there is the finisher dance that you often talk about, where the guys are reversing, it's like it feels insane because you don't see it all the time. You know, if you see it all the time, then you ain't gonna win with this one. They're gonna counter it or whatever. You know, like that's the other thing. You can train your audience in that way.
Yes. What makes heavyweight New Japan wrestling so sick is a lot of times it's not even like the hot, like even the matches that get the 4 from Dave and stuff. It's not even that like there were these big high spots that like earn that match that score. There's just a lot of interactions where it really just feels like this is about to come unglued and they're just like fighting for real. And it's really funny to watch because like a guy will hit a guy the wrong way and you'll see the other guy like, hey, what the fuck, motherfucker? And then like they'll just kind of slap each other back and forth a little bit. And then you start seeing people throwing leg kicks like it's MMA. And then they're just slapping and then the ref has to get in between. Like Tiger Hattori will slip in like, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the guy, the young boys on the sideline of the ring are just like, they're like posted up to make sure nothing gets really ugly. And then like a guy will hit a brain buster. And like that 1 minute flash will just feel so chaotic and insane and like dangerous, you know? And like, it just gets you going.
I mean, it's like how if you watch a prize fight, you know, the guys may be boxing behind their jab, and then say someone hits the other low or after the bell, and suddenly there's pushing and shoving, and it feels like anything could happen for that moment, and then they settle into like I was reviewing a match recently. I talked about this. There's a myth that if it's even slightly personal, I'm not talking about a blood feud. I'm talking about like just a conflict of any kind, right? This idea that you in those matches you have to start by brawling and doing the Fry Takayama, and it's like you can still lock up. You just the way you lock up will tell me everything. Like, you should lock up with aggression and intensity, and you should feel the hate in the guy's body language. Like, you know, a great match in that regard. This is one you wouldn't imagine me to put over, believe it or not. Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, two guys I don't talk about a lot. You know the Wendy stuff they did?
Yes.
A lot of people dunked on that for like the fact that they didn't start with a brawl. And Handwork reviewed the match, and it's a great review. I recommend everyone read it. And he talks about like the whole point of the story is that AJ doesn't want to give in to Joe's trick, so he's not going to fall into that trap. So instead, he tries to wrestle. But AJ, you can imagine this as I'm describing it. I'm sure he has that intensity, right?
I remember,
so
and
like,
if I'm not mistaken, like
piece of shit, you know, like.
And if I'm not mistaken, at the end, he just says, "Man, fuck this," and then
yeah. But he's the baby face, so we actually see him go through that. That's kind of British, you know. That's kind of that kind of vibe.
The AJ Joe stuff in 2018, like it's not exactly the ceiling of what you want from these guys, but it is still very good. Yeah. I think it's very good.
I think it's underrated. Honestly, I think it is.
Yeah. Like their stuff, a lot of that stuff was like hovering around 4 stars for me.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yeah. The issue is it doesn't. The first match should lead to like a higher peak, and it doesn't. But that's not. I mean, they didn't get a chance to work the cell, even though the cell was the next pay, and you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the next match is more of the same, but with like a finish, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that hurts is like Samoa Joe is like already like slightly creatively damaged, and also WWE main roster crowds aren't the best at this time.
No, they're not.
like that's probably putting it nicely. Honestly, they're like acting shitty. So that's the thing. It's also why like I don't know if it'll ever happen, but if AJ and Joe worked now, like it would obviously be a different storyline. But I think if they worked now, in the rights in one of those fucking 5-match Triple H PLEs where these guys go 23 minutes, I think they'd have their best match since the TNA days.
I do too. Yeah.
Joe was because I mean both guys, their renaissances came at similar points. Joe's came in 2023, AJ's came a year later, but these guys are in the middle of runs and stretches right now, or they're both in a form right now that they had not been in a while. So
it seems to have, for Joe at least, I think AJ's, I don't think either of us can really explain AJ's improvement beyond just like
I'm not really
exactly like his with Joe, to me, his time out the ring allowed him to really simplify what he needs to be doing as an old man wrestler. He really figured it out, to my eye.
It's the resurgence of the man known as Bronson Reed, Joe.
Very similar.
Yeah, look, man, his issue was always that he was too cute for his own good, while simultaneously not being menacing at all. Yeah. But his gimmick and his vibe suggests that you're supposed to be afraid of him. But he comes off like someone who couldn't hurt a fly.
Right.
And so you watch these matches, and you're just watching a guy who you don't believe doing shit that doesn't look that good because he's still trying to do like PWG adjacent stuff, and it's just like, what even is this wrestler? Yeah. And now they just decided, no. You're destructive, you're explosive, you're the firework, and you do these explosive things, and in between the explosive things, you are Bam Bam / Vader for real. Now he's invoked these people's names for years, but he had never wrestled like that at all. Like he thought he did because he did a moonsault, but bro, you know what I mean?
I will say, in fairness, and if I'm doing this, with sincerity,
right?
So Bam Bam did at times struggle similarly. The Bam Bam's advantage was he was one of the scariest looking people ever.
Yes, 100%. Bam Bam would be a little aimless with some of his work too, but
and he was too graceful for his own good at times. But he had the tattoos on the head.
He had a tattoo on his head, Joe. He had a tattoo on his fucking head. And if he yelled in the ring, you'd hear him be like, "Oh fuck!" You're like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. He looked like an animal. Yeah,
that's really all. Like Bam Bam can do a cartwheel because he looks like that. If Bronson Reed does a cartwheel, which he did in a sequence with Johnny Gargano in NXT. You look like a fucking jackass.
Right. Because it's not fair. It's just perception is reality, dude. You don't look like Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yes. Speaking of which, Joe, it's funny. I mentioned this on the Raw review. He, because his voice also is a problem. Because he was just like, well, I'm the monster Bronson Reed, and I'm big. And he's like, come on, man. And they've done now? You can't change the voice you're given, the voice you're born with. But now he just kind of he's been able to voice act a new voice for his video packages. Yes. And so his last video package, he just puts on a new voice, and he was just like, we're going to find out, Bronson, who the true monster WWE is. And it's not perfect, but clearly
he's trying.
Clearly someone was like, can you sound different? And he's like, I'll try. And then he put on a new voice, and they're like, hey, that works. He's been produced, no one's watching this, so he's been produced by Heyman lately. And it's been very noticeable. Yeah, he's been produced by Heyman.
Well, Bam Bam Bigelow, Paul Heyman. If you're gonna do it, then that's a good route. That's a good route to take. Good Lord.
And I'll tell you what, Joe. Someone that watches these 3-hour broadcasts because I get paid to review it. You need that thing in the show that just kind of pops you out of the chair. That's explosive and carnal, And I'll tell you what, Braun Breaker was that in the summertime with the big spears that he would do running around the ring. Now it's Bronson Reed. These tsunamis and the destruction and the carnage, it's the thing you wait for. I'm watching Raw, and I'm like, when am I going to get the Bronson Reed moment where there's an explosion? And you described this match that you didn't see on the Hulbert House show this week or last week, and I could sense the resentment and dismissal in your voice because you did the whole thing of it's that modern, polished, curated, premeditated chaos. And that's a real thing that is very commonplace in wrestling. It's a very real thing. It's also very real in WWE, and it's done in that kind of set PC way. What I would use to defend this week's or last week's Bronson Reed, Braun Strowman deal is obviously the big things are planned, of course, but the way it developed was well done because here's the thing, Joe. What do you notice about those kind of set piece destruction matches? They take a while to get from spot to spot to spot.
Right.
This entire thing unfolded in the space of 3 minutes. And they were in different locations in the space of 3 minutes. And the way they did it was almost as organic feeling as possible for something that was planned. Because it was like the bell rings, Bronson Reed runs into the rope, the first rope comes off because of how big he is. And you're like, fuck, what are we going to do now? And the ref's like, we can't start this match. And they just keep fighting. And then they do like the fan throwing, the barricade break, the fight to the side of the ring, the fight backstage, the table break, and then the wall break, and then the door break, all in like 3 minutes. And you're like, what the fuck? And then you just go to commercial. And so the way that whole thing unfolded was just very it's very chaotic, it's very exciting, it's very dynamic.
So you mentioned I didn't see the match. So
yeah.
I saw a reel that was all of the stuff you described but strung together.
Mm-hmm.
And so in my head, there was like extensive dead air between. If it was literally just that, with like a tiny pieces of padding, then this actually settled the score on this. Let's clear the air on this because this is important. Bronson Reed.
Yeah. He's good.
One of these. He's one of these wrestlers that you and I have got a lot of bits out of, right? And you used to be on my side, and now you watch Raw, so you've changed your mind. And so, in the name of content, I stand my position on stuff I'm not watching. Right? This is what we do on this show. But I actually want to do this because I actually feel strongly about this.
Okay.
Number one, wrestling needs big men.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he was always very obviously capable of being an actual big man attraction and struggled to do so was very frustrating.
Yeah, we've had talked about how he used to infuriate me when he was in New Japan, Joe. I was like, please, just wake up, just fucking.
You was mad about So for all of my fun, I'm actually like glad he's doing this because he's not a guy who's like untalented. He was a guy who I think was poorly produced and didn't figure it out for himself. And now. And this is where you start getting into creative and stuff. It's like, it's one thing to use Gunther as a guy who has lots of great matches, but like, it's another when you start getting what they've got out of Damian Priest and now what they're getting out of Bronson Reed. They're not untalented guys, but they need producing. So,
you know who's gotten hands on with both of those guys, Joe, in recent
I'd imagine Lord Steven Regal or Paul Heyman, one of the two.
Well, so Regal was very hard on Reed. Last year, he was really hard on him. He thought he didn't get it. He called him thick once. So there was that, but he's been very happy with his work lately. And basically, really what it was, Joe, was coming out of SummerSlam. Everybody gathered together and they put their minds together. And they're like, who are we making a guy? And they identified Reed and they said, how do we get him over the hump? What do we do? And Regal had his ideas and Hunter had his vision. Paulie was instrumental in some of his stuff. In general, the vibe I got, Joe, was after the MSG angle with Heyman where he got incapacitated, following that, Heyman's been more hands-on with the literal just creative of the overall product.
Wow, that's interesting because my understanding is that's been a pretty positively, kind of in terms of critical acclaim. I think people have liked this post SummerSlam stuff, right?
Well, specifically on the Red brand, and
well, but I think even the SmackDown stuff has been better. I think coming out of course. Kevin stuff and I
can just. I mean, again, we're an hour into this podcast, so I can just start saying things. The Kevin stuff is this is going to make you laugh. It's Cody's pen.
I believe that because it actually is very much the kind of stuff that he did when he was in the Elite.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because we all have fun with the Elite lore stuff, but there is actually they did do a good job in the olden days of everyone having their own personality.
Yes.
And Kevin's character, a lot of good wrestling writing, and I guess good writing, but I don't feel educated enough to say that. I'll say wrestling is just doing the maths and figuring out for yourself, where would Kevin Owens stand on these things? Well, he hates the bloodline.
Yes.
And he's had an issue in the past of turning on every one of his friends because he is absolutely desperate as a prize fighter to acclaim gold. So what would he be scared of doing? Chasing gold because he knows what's going to happen. It's it isn't complicated. It's just you actually have to do the process of thinking about the characters on the TV show.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. See, when you have a well-developed and multi-dimensional character, it writes itself. It's just how does he react to these different situations? And so Cody put him in a sporting framework. Kevin Owens, that is, and again, Kevin Owens when he's chasing gold, how does he react? How does he? What type of person does he become? He's trying to fight that. He's trying to be the man that he's developed into now. He's proud of who he is, but the problem is, to be this man, he has to now be settled with mediocrity. I mean, be content with mediocrity, and so it's like, to push past the mediocrity, you have to personally regress. And then there's this added element, Joe, that they've added in this week's wrinkle, which was basically that Kevin Owens is clearly very uncomfortable with Cody Rhodes working with Roman Reigns.
As he should be, too. And if you're a Kevin Owens fan, you say, damn right, Kevin Owens.
Right. And so they're trying to interview him like, hey, man, what do you think of this? And he said, like, I'll just he's like very hesitant. He's like, I'm going to just I'll go out publicly and I'll say what I have to say. But we never got to hear what he had to say. Right. And so that's now a tense thing. And it's like, is that going to be what sets him over the edge? So the point I'm getting at is that stuff is Cody. Jacob Fatu is Paul Heyman.
Of course.
Yeah. Right. Roman Reigns is Paul Heyman, of course. What's it called? The Liv Dom stuff has some Heyman in there, which is hilarious.
He loves him some Liv Morgan, doesn't he?
He thinks she is dangerous sexuality, was the word. So there you go. What a fucking...
It's not the first time you've said it, and it still got me.
Yeah, he a lot of Damian Priest as a babyface has been him. And he's handled a lot of Bronson Reed. So yeah, it's interesting.
You don't have to love his methods. I don't always, but that dude gets guys over.
That's what I'm saying. It's just
simple
like,
as that, dude. I mean, look what he did with Drew McBack. Even when he had the Raw book for 5 months or whatever, he got Drew more over than ever as a babyface. Remember?
And pretty much set him as a main eventer from that point.
Yeah,
So,
get shit done, dude.
Bottom line, it's SummerSlam was in the books, and it's like let's get some more guys over. Boom, and like now a month later, like Bronson Reed's like a force on the show, and Damian Priest is Undertaker, and it's like, what the fuck, like.
Right now, you want to see some guys being over, either. I think it might be time for the main event attraction of Session 1. I think it might be time to go to Atlanta, brother.
It might be time.
I think it might be time, right?
Yeah. So, folks, I've been trying to get Joe to watch this match.
Yeah.
For a year and a half.
Yeah, at least.
Every time we'll finish Wrestle Pierce Worldwide, I'm like, yo, there's this really sick match. It's a Raw event. It's one of my favorite Raw main events of the era. It's white hot. It's like quietly one of the best TV matches of the Attitude Era. And Joe's like, yeah, I've never seen it. I'll check that out someday. And
I always intend to watch it. That's the funnier part about it. Like, this isn't like a bit we're doing. Like, it isn't even really funny. It's just like, I just never watched it. And then we decided we were going to do a Grinalong, and then we never actually did anything with that. And so, why not? Now's the time, right?
Yeah, so you know what? In this wacky podcast that's gone in every direction, we're going to end this session watching The Rock, Cactus Jack, Scotty 2 Hotty, Grandmaster Sexay, and Rikishi Fatu taking on Triple H, Road Dogg, Christopher Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Big Perry Saturn. The context here, folks, it's February 2000. The WWF are about to enter the best stretch in promotional history critically, in my opinion, at least to this point. The Radicals have just jumped ship to the WWF. And in the storyline, they fought DX. They were ringside. They were introduced backstage. It was established backstage, Joe, in a segment. I don't know if you've ever seen it, where Mick Foley is basically like, hey, man, like, what's it like to see a full house? Like, isn't it great over here? You know, high five. WWF. He does that whole thing, right? And he's like, he makes it clear like he kind of got them over. He's been recruiting them, this and that, and they're like friends. And so it's like, okay, so the Radicals are Foley's friends. You know, they even mentioned on commentary, like, you know, like there's the ECW connection with him and a certain guy in that group. But the point is, they're friends.
Malenko.
Sure. The shooter, Dean Malenko, the Iceman. But unfortunately, you know, money rules over everything, Joe. And the Radicals sold out. They sold out and they jumped Mick Foley and they turned on him. like assholes. They struck an agreement with Triple H, and they're helping him in the war against Mick Foley. And so Mick Foley has to rely on an old friend, a man that was his partner the year before, someone that they grew to have respect for. And so The Rock declares on this episode of Raw while talking to Kevin Kelly, whose face has been enveloped in a Poontang Pie shirt. He tells him, Mick, you are not going 1-on-5. You are going 2-on-5. And so the Rock and Sock Connection will reunite.
Well, hold on. We have to be clear, because that's what Jerry Lawler said. And then, presumably, Vince began to yell in Jim Ross's ear as he explains, this is Cactus Jack, which means this is not the Rock and Sock Connection, which
Right.
Jerry Lawler responds to with like, well, sure, but come on.
It's like, you know what I fucking mean, Vince? Like, it's like, it's Cactus, it's not Mankind, it's not Mankind, it's not the Rock and Sock. Right. So we're to expect that this is going to be a 2-on-5. But Rock and Foley will have some allies, those allies being too cool. Bottom line here, folks, this is one of the great Raw main events of this time. It is a 10-man tag. It's unbridled chaos. It's exciting. It's dynamic. It's lovely. It's heated. It's WWF in 2000. There's big stars. There's good work. There's hot crowds. And we're going to watch this match. And you know what, Joe, if you want, we can, when this video gets posted, we can provide the links to this match in the description, I think.
We can. I think so.
So, Joe, without further ado, do you have your link up, sir?
Well, I do indeed. This comes from a channel called One of the Millions, which popped.
That's a great channel name.
Yes, and even better, we're going to have an interesting demo because this is a 2-part. So you want to pull up, obviously, part 1 and maybe open part 2 in a new tab or something and have it sitting there ready to go, because this is the wine sessions. We don't want to just watch this and then jump to set. We're going to stop in the middle and discuss what we've seen thus far. Now, we may not have seen anything at that point, so it may be a very brief halftime show. I don't know.
We might have to discuss what Rock's going to have to do to mount a comeback here or something. You know, we'll figure it out.
I think that's better than us just being like, okay, guys, now go to part. Like, I think we need to have a bridge there. So,
yeah. And so,
if you're watching on the network, go to YouTube instead.
yeah, fuck the network. So One of the Millions, Cactus Jack, Rock, Rikishi, and Too Cool versus DX and the Radicals, part 1 on Raw's War. Joe, I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, play. You're going to play on play. So 3, 2, 1, play.
Look at that visual, huh?
Yeah.
What an image. My goodness.
I got to say, in my older age, I don't have that many strong feelings on DX, but I've always thought this theme song was phenomenal.
The theme is cool, yeah.
The theme is tremendous. Bow to the masters. It is funny. There's all these chaotic visuals, and really they were just like Triple H and some like goons at this time. You know, like they're not. You know, they're not even...
the presentation is cool though, with the carts and it's cool.
Awesome, Joe. When I was a kid, I didn't watch the original DX in real time, but I saw the 06 one, and like those visuals tricked me into thinking like 06 DX was good.
Yeah.
You know, I'm watching these like chaotic visuals. I'm like, man, these guys are like rebels. They're like anarchists, you know.
Every time I see clips from that stuff, I'm like blown away by how bad it was. Blown away. It's the kind of stuff you watch and go like, oh my, it was that bad. Like it really was that bad.
It was just like 2 40-year-old guys just like making like cock jokes and stuff, and it's weird because like again, like I was like a kid, so like I thought it was funny, you know. But
of course, which was what I mean. I guess that was the intent. Saying that, but in 2006, it wasn't even like 4 kids at that point. It was gross, and I don't know.
What makes it funnier? Oh, poor Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, man.
Poor Eddie Guerrero. He sustained an injury immediately in his Fed debut.
Dude, look at how even Dean is built here, bro.
Dude, he like look at him. He's like 5'7", but like, you know,
look at the size of these dudes. They're all like 5'7", and they're absolutely humongous.
Look at
their shoulders.
Look at Perry. Perry would be like the MLW champion now.
Perry would be working Rampage, brother.
Cactus Jack's theme song was amazing.
By the way, look at the shape mixing here.
Oh, he looks like hell.
He's got his weight down though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll
just
notice
looks
here
like
he's
hell.
very mobile.
Yeah. He does the same for his 04 comeback.
Oh my
doesn't he?
God,
Like
Joe,
drops
look
a ton of weight. Oh my God.
The roof blew off the place.
I've said this to you before. Time machine. I'm starting a promotion. I could have any top guys on my baby face. 2000 Dwayne Johnson. I don't know, man.
Oh man.
Oh
Oh
baby.
my God.
Look at X
boy.
Pac.
He's like, he didn't know what to do.
Well, I guess
baby.
not many have worked 5-on-2s. Here we go.
There we go.
We got ourselves some backup. It appears.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Rikishi.
Rikishi's one of those guys, man. The more I watch, the more I appreciate. He was a very gifted.
He was
worker,
good.
man.
Yeah, he was good.
Really good.
This is the type of chaos where like everyone's doing their stuff at the same time, so the camera has to just catch what they can catch. And I'm into that type of thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, this is rabid, dude.
Because now with set pieces, like they avoid that. But like here, it's just like, again, whatever you catch.
Right, the first Anarchy in the Arena had that to an extreme. It was like it was part of the charm. It felt like anything could happen.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And then the more of those they did, the less that felt like the vibe. It was much more like, now everyone lay down while these guys do this. You know?
Right.
Like,
we just cut back and Benoit's getting thrown over the barricade and shit.
Right. Like, let the cameras, it's a tough gig for production, but like that's the gig, right? It is what it is.
And it creates the feel of the match anyway, so it's probably even better.
Oh wow. Rude awakening.
The Grandmaster Joe, he was actually a pretty nice little grappler in his own right.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the stuff before he's Grandmaster.
Brian Christopher, right?
Brian Christopher. Yeah, he's a good worker, man.
Yeah, he actually wanted to be a nice little light heavyweight and stuff.
Yeah, he's a sad case. It's a shame.
Yeah,
it's very, very sad.
Another guy who was a good grappler was Scott Taylor here, Scotty Suhadi. He was
super gifted. Yeah,
he was a hell of a worker.
Man. This, you can't judge guys' skill set by their gimmick. Like, it's not.
And even with the gimmick, like this era for tag team wrestling, like it's remembered for the Hardys, Edge and Christian, and the Dudleys. But as someone that's seen every TV of this time, Joe, I liked these guys on TV as a tag team more than that whole trio, except for maybe the Hardys. Like the Hardys, like those three guys, they were great with the big stuff on the pay-per-views. And their TV stuff is fun, but like Too Cool just popped the house so much. They remind me of like Alpha Academy in that type of way.
And that's such an important role. We were talking about roles earlier on the card, like go-to pop there. Tremendous.
Do you hear this crowd, Joe?
Yeah, it's outrageous. Isn't it? It's actually hard to not just. I'm keeping talking because we're doing this, but like,
you want to listen to them right now.
Because it's just it's actual heat. They're responding to what's happening, not just doing the chants. Like, they're actually living and dying with each momentum shift.
Exactly. Like, this is a control section, but like they're chanting for Rock right now.
They're desperate. They cannot wait to see the baby faces turn the tide.
Ooh.
And then what I wonder is, do they go into something like that in response to the people? That's what stuff.
Oh my God, Joe! The reaction for Rikishi.
Oh, it's tremendous. Like, you get what I'm saying? Though, like, I wonder if that's the case there with Malenko's here in the crowd, and he's like, "Fuck this heat!" Like, because the Horsemen would always do that, right? Like, Oli used to get mad about it, but Rick and Arm would just bump regardless if the crowd was reacting.
Oh my God, this sunset. Nope. I thought he was going to do the drop on him.
Close shave there.
He said, fuck that. Oh, baby.
Oh.
Ooh. Gorgeous Samoan drop.
Yeah, that was nice. Crazy feed on that, it must be said.
Oh, baby. Oh, baby.
Oh, look at Kishi's facials.
Oh, my God. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go.
Oh, bro, we're coming in for a landing on this deal. We're already getting. Oh my God, they're just shutting up.
Motherfucker.
God.
You're taking these fucking cheeks.
The Radicals thing as a concept pops me so much. The idea of getting that group of talent, like, it just pops me.
They're going crazy.
Look at the fire. Look at the fire.
Mick.
Man.
Bang, bang.
I don't think we have to worry about how the hell's going to turn this around.
They are on fire. I'm gonna stop there before we go to this next part. I feel like I need a cigarette, Joe.
The heat is just intoxicating. It's just it's
like,
overwhelming, isn't it?
It's just electrifying in there. Like, guys are just tagging. Everybody's so unique and distinct. Everyone's work looks good. The fans have different pops for every person because they all like everyone like in a different way. It's like, all right, Scotty, try to do your thing. Or, oh, come on, Maker, come on, Rikishi. And while saving the big one, they're keeping Triple H and Rock apart.
Of course.
It's just it's so like you said, it's so intoxicating. It's just like Novocaine to my system. I showed this match to AO like a few months ago, and he never seen it, and he was just blown away. So it's beautiful. I referenced this match to you, Joe, when I watched some of those early Collision CMFTR main event tags, because it made me feel the same way, in that kind of like this unbridled like powder keg of a situation with the babyface team and the heel team, and like that.
It definitely had elements of that for sure.
Yeah.
Where was this match, Ibou? Where was this?
So I always remember this being the Georgia Dome Raw, but that was like I think a week or two prior. I want to say this is actually in Dallas.
Right, because I was looking at us. That was the one thing I was trying to figure out. Okay, we'll figure this out. So we didn't go to Atlanta.
No, we went to Dallas. It's fine.
Dallas. I mean, if ever there was a place to do a big multi-man tag, I mean,
exactly. Yeah, right.
That would be the place.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out I don't know what the house was when they did the Georgia, but this is Dallas. This is this is the reunion ring at 12,000 in there. I'm looking at the card here. Jericho and Viscera for the IC belt.
I wonder who wins that.
New Age Outlaws over Edge and Christian for the tag belts.
That was actually tidy. I've seen this episode before. It was tidy.
Kurt Angle, Mark Henry, which would eventually main event a Royal Rumble.
That match was just a vehicle to get Kurt over, so he just beats the guy. Yeah.
Jacqueline versus Luna for the women's title. 1 minute 15 seconds on that one. And the Dudleys got a quick win over D'Lo Brown and the Godfather. So
another match to just, because here's the thing again, we're transitioning out of like Russo's Attitude Era WWF, and in doing so, a lot of those types of guys, the Midians, the D-Los, the Godfathers, people from like the 98, 99 period, they're basically just doing job, even though they're not out of the territory, but they're out of their spots at this point. You know what I mean? And so a lot of the TV is just the former Nation of Domination guys and guys like that, or APA or whoever. They're just doing jobs to the Kurt Angles of the world, the Dudleys of the world, the Hardys of the world, the Jerichos of the world. Like that was kind of like a lot of the TV. And then you'd get the hot main event with like Dwayne and whoever in the main event. And he'd also open the show with the big angle, and he'd bridge the middle. He'd bridge the middle with like a hot backstage interview or something. And so it made these TVs really fun.
So the question is, if we're in the corner of DX and the Radicals, who are we isolating here? Who are we cutting the ring off and singling out?
I think it's time to get X-Pac some minutes, because here's the thing.
Yep.
X-Pac isn't the biggest guy. He isn't the strongest guy.
No.
But he's crafty. And he has this weird knack to just give you instant offense and evade big bombs. And so I think as long as they could keep Dwayne off the field, and you run and you just throw long to X-Pac here, he can get you some yards. And so
maybe so.
I think so. And then if you could find a way to get Hunter in there once Dwayne's in there to neutralize him, we can stabilize this thing.
Yeah, I think we need to worry about Rikishi. I think if we test Foley's endurance, Cactus Jack, Vince. If we test his endurance, I think we might have a shot too. Sexay and Hottie, I think they've got to be the guys we circle on there. I think we can do something with those.
Here's the deal. I think they made the wrong play call on the McMahon-Helmsley faction side, where basically Benoit was clearly going to be a big one for them, but he unfortunately ran into the brick wall that is Rikishi.
Yes.
Benoit was definitely going to put some points on the board on the two cool boys, but Rikishi at the rim is tough for him,
It's not a matchup I like. We need to figure out who's guarding Rikishi, but I think there's a chance to turn this thing around. With that in mind, we should probably proceed, right? But that's probably what we should do, I'd imagine. Maybe.
Second link up here. Let's go full screen.
Right.
And we're going to go 3, 2, 1, play. All right.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mick Foley is running wild.
He sure is,
God.
isn't he? My goodness.
My God.
Wow.
He's giving him hell. Oh, they're jumping him.
Oh, look at Foley fighting. Look at that.
This is a mugging, Joe.
Foley ducking his head down and throwing those wingmill punches.
Oh, that's
Fabulous.
awesome. Fans want Rocky to get in there.
Once you get guys over, wrestling's so easy.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
My goodness, man.
I don't know if you remember this, Joe, but throughout a lot of those, like that Judgment Day versus Cody and Friends era of Raw last year, I kept getting WWF 2000 and stuff like this was why.
It would definitely, there'd be certain weeks where it would definitely capture like something, even if not to this
Resemblance.
extreme, but
Yeah.
something as close as you can get now. I think.
What a punch.
Like people are leaping up and down on a punch out of corner. Like,
Yeah, like it's been a lot of punching and kicking, and these fans are living and dying with it, but that's what wrestling is supposed to be. Oh, hell yeah. Ooh.
Oh, that's nice. Double down. The thing is, because of the way they've got the people, there's not really any reason to take it slow, put the building blocks in place. Like they're ready. They're ready, and here he comes.
Oh my God.
Dwayne in with those punches, the very distinctive punches. Look at that bump.
Hell yeah. Oh,
nice. Everything he does has a flourish, doesn't it?
Oh my God.
Like if you put a silhouette on Dwayne, you could spot his stuff immediately.
Yes.
Like,
Joe, that was a crazy hot tag.
it was, and honestly, and we're both big Rock fans, but dude,
hell yeah.
80% of the credit goes to the fellas feeding him there. That was
Oh, they're
incredible
going-
stuff.
Oh, we
Yeah.
got 2 super kicks in this deal. What are we in, 2024?
That was no, because he bumped for it. That was the result of heels trying to get over with the new locker room because they fed
Bronco
Dwayne,
Busters?
bro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously X-Pac's been there for a bit, but it's a couple of years almost. But
Grandmaster.
oh, that bump must hurt like hell, dude.
Look at my guy. Oh no. Who was that?
Was that Eddie? Who is that?
That was probably Eddie.
Eddie. In all of the things he was great at, you don't want to bring this up often, but it's true. He was great as a secondary ringside. He really was.
Yeah.
It's
We have
just like everything
Grandmaster
else.
Sex Day Triple H minutes.
Yeah, pretty good too.
Ooh. Jumbo's asshole chance and a Jumbo Struda style high knee there from Hunter. Grandmaster's in trouble here, Joe.
I did say to you, this is the guy we should target.
Yeah. Because
Perry
Grandmaster.
Stanton.
I was a Perry guy, you know.
There's something there.
Yeah. Oh shit. The disrespect.
Bruce Pritchard thought he was like the money of the group. When they signed him, he was like, we got Perry Stanton.
Oh, we're about to get a snap.
Oh. And Matt literally bouncing under the good God, man.
These radical guys, Joe, undersized, but they're so fucking good that in Vince's WWF at this time, with the year that they had prior, they immediately became players on the show, like 2 weeks in.
Yeah.
This pretty much was the match that earned them their money and earned them their roles. And you kind of see why. You know what I mean? It's like you could throw them in there against like the top baby faces.
I do wonder how different history is if they come over like separately. Like, I just wonder how different, not in a negative or positive way, it's just a different timeline then, right? Like, it's just a different thing because part of the big hook was they came together. It was a crazy thing.
Here's my thing, Joe. Let's say WF gets all those extra names to the roster going into this year that they do, which is like Radicals and Angle debuts, and you get Jericho going and all the Dudleys and all that type of stuff, right? But Russo never leaves.
Yeah, see, now that's fascinating.
So I was gonna say, does WWF have the same 2000? Like, surely not, right? Like,
well, but then the other side of that would be, what on earth happens in WCW? Who do they hire? Because I'm not saying it would have got better, but it probably wouldn't have accelerated the way it accelerated, right? Like
it would have still been bad over there.
But yeah.
It wouldn't have been out. Oh, that chop. It wouldn't have been as outrageously awful in that kind of like tanking the business in 1 year type of way.
Right.
Oh my God, these claps.
Come
on.
The reason.
Double DDT.
I always love when on a double DDT the guys bump in the opposite ways.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, it's the best.
It rolled through and took it flat. That was cool. Cut the
That
ring
match
off.
you could give Cactus is back in. Hell yeah.
Cactus is on fire.
He's just, oh yeah.
Dude, I kind of wish there was more to it. This was longer.
Yeah, Joe, you don't want it to end, right? Like
I just peeped at the time and was like, oh.
You're like, fuck, right? Like, it's so pleasant, you know? Like, it's just,
it's thrilling, dude. It's
yes.
Oh,
fuck.
oh my god, that was a heavy one too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh baby.
World Tag League finish.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Wait, did Mick not break it?
Yeah, I think he was out of position accidentally.
Triple H didn't stop him. Yeah.
Yeah. There's more to this though, Joe. Keep watching.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's something here that makes this one of the most memorable Raw endings ever.
This is one of those matches where the finish is like an afterthought because there's just this chaos, regardless of the bell.
You just, yeah, exactly. But you also just remember it because for the energy of the match, you know.
Yeah, it's like it actually is ironically like one of those Von Erich's fucking tags, right? Where it's like, who cares? It went over. It's his life and death.
Joe, Dave Meltzer was outrageous on this week's Observer about this match, like at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was comparing this to like World Class and like the Hot Puro main events in Korakuen with different promotions and stuff. We have a return, Joe, from a man who hasn't been around.
Oh, is it Glenn?
It's been months, Joe.
That's a cool visual, isn't it?
We haven't seen this man since like the fall of '99.
Oh my! The big man is back.
The big man is back.
There's such a cool camera shot. That one there. Business has just picked up.
Kane is back.
I'm glad this is before he started dressing like a pop star with like the see-through vest.
Joe, there's a lot of men in that ring who could eat some shit right now.
Oh yeah, Dean's like calling orders. He's like, who's going first? Look at Malenko, bro. Let me get this. Oh, there we go. Did you see X-Pac bumping over the top?
Yes.
Oh, what
a
baby. Treat.
Perry's gonna eat it.
Get the big heel out of there.
Oh my! Billy Gunn is huge.
Of course.
He's fucking huge.
Look at Paul Bearer's face. Paul Bearer's talking that shit.
Yeah. Look at the baby faces in the ring, Joe.
Okay.
My God.
We now need to figure out what happened on that Nitro from the same night.
Looking up what is it, February 7th?
So, okay, here it is. Main event. 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Sid Vicious defends the world's title against Scott Hall. Beast.
I do want to see that visual.
Norman Smiley, Evan Courageous. The Wall defeated Booker T in 3 minutes.
God.
The Wall.
Oh my God.
Tank Abbott over the Barbarian in a shoot fight rules match. Combined time on these first 3 matches is like 6 minutes, by the way. Terry Funk lost an I Quit match to David Flair.
Oh my God.
Stevie Ray defeated the Disco Inferno. Bam Bam defeated Brian Knobs.
Oh my God.
Billy Kidman over the Demon.
I'll tell you what, Bam Bam Brian Knobs would be a sick 97 ECW match.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure it was much more unfortunate in February 2000. Well, there you go. We didn't we didn't go to Atlanta. We did a couple times in our conversation. We talked about things sort of loosely hovering the area, but we sure saw some stuff in Dallas, brother, here in the session.
How do you feel watching that, Joe? What are your immediate reactions and feelings and thoughts? You just parachuted in there to a 10-minute deal in a moment in time when this promotion could, in theory, do no wrong and was winning and was flying really high. What do you make of what you just watched?
Well, I have so much I can say, and I'm going to say some of it, and then I'm going to say something that we can all agree on to close.
Okay.
The first session. What I'm going to say is it was exhilarating. It was uplifting. It was a reminder of what this sport is supposed to be. It was eye-opening in some cases in terms of just watching the way the guys were still moving at that time. You mentioned Foley being mobile. He was so energetic.
Mhm.
Always exciting to see guys that you kind of slot in your mind as comedy mid-carders get a chance to do stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I say all that, Ibou, to close out session 1 of the Wine Sessions by saying, I'm sorry to say, but I think it used to be better, brother.
Well, that's just objectively true. So it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, we're not going to apologize, right? I mean,
no.
If you expect anything from the Wine Sessions, it's that we're going to be talking about it used to be better a lot because that's what we do. So,
wine itself as a drink used to be better.
Right. So we went to Dallas and we learned what we learned. Shout out to Rikishi, Scotty Too Hotty,
Mm-hmm.
Dean Malenko, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Mick Foley, Perry Saturn. Who else it? Grandmaster Sexay, Eddie Guerrero, Paul Bearer, and then the other less favorable characters that were in the match. It used to be better.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about it. It's just, you have the crowd heat at this time, right? Which you had in 99 and 98, but you got these guys that can go now. I mean, the Radicals are a game changer from that standpoint. So it's just like, man, I mean, look, you got Perry Saturn and Malenko and Benoit. Dwayne is over as hell. He has a better handle than he ever did at working babyface. And truthfully, he always had great babyface instincts, even back when he was in my idea. But the gimmick was lame as fuck. But now he's The Rock. And with all that,
hell, he's so cool, bro. My God.
Yeah, but he can now work the way that he was trained to work. And he has the similar fire that his father did and that kind of thing. So
he's kind of like classical babyface behind all of the third person and the arrogance. He's a classical babyface. To your point, that's a good call. Yeah.
When you watch him work, he comes in and obviously he has his flourishes, but it's actually very similar to Rocky Johnson's flourishes. A lot of the kind of shuffling and swiveling and all that kind of stuff, the herky jerky. When he's throwing the punches and he's cooking and he's doing the back body drops and the spine busters and everything. And like you just said, he's Rock's hot tags are Southern hot tags, Joe.
Yeah.
And so
I agree completely.
It's really what helps these types of matches, and it's what made this one special. And the truth is, even though this is the one that everyone remembers, this was kind of when you look at the rest of the year, 60% of Raw main events have this type of energy, to be honest with you, because most of them have Rock in the main event in a tag. And so you kind of create this formula where it's Rock versus bad guys. They usually try to put him in some type of extenuating circumstance to limit his ability to kind of do his thing. He tags in, gets in anyway, runs wild. It's a hot situation. And then typically there's heat at the end of the show.
It's just such a cheat code to lose Austin and have Dwayne. It's just outrageous, dude. Exactly. Now, here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
The big comparison, Dwayne, Austin, preference, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But which one of those fellas is closer to being a wine wrestler? Because Steve was a wine wrestler in his young days, no question. But he would say himself, I think, he stopped being a classical wine wrestler post the injury in 97. Dwayne, I think, flirted with the wine. Where do you stand on this?
This is a great question.
Yes.
I think even when Austin was full of piss and vinegar as early Stone Cold, I still think he was a wine wrestler.
Yeah.
96, 97.
Because the fundamentals were so good.
He was
fundamentals, the mechanics.
But he was also just that rabid dog that just would dissect your leg, and was it the Brett match? It was a match where I remember he's grabbing the guy by around the ankle, and he's just lifting the ankle and dropping your knee repeatedly. And I don't know. Yeah, early Steve Austin, obviously, and early Stone Cold is a wine wrestler. I don't know if he was a wine wrestler in 98, but he's still a bad motherfucker,
Dwayne is more of a popcorn wrestler, right? Popcorn, some soda, go to the movies.
Yeah, Dwayne was get your Burger King, you know what I mean? Get your French fries, You know,
Have fun.
have a good time.
Go out and see the sun. You know, have a good time.
Exactly. You know, you got your visor out, your shades, your flip flops. You watch Rock just kind of do his thing.
You do like a subtle pump of the fist when he makes his comeback, that kind of deal.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, I like it. You try and do the eyebrow, that kind of thing.
I think Dwayne right now probably thinks he's a wine wrestler.
Oh, for sure. He went 40, bro. He was shooting for more than wine grab. He tried to do like an All Japan tag in that son of a bitch. That was crazy. He flew with Masawa.
I was having a conversation with the guys about that because they were saying, like, I don't know about this Cody Rock thing. And I said, the thing is, Rock physically and work-wise looked good in his match. The problem with the match wasn't, like, guys looking like shit. The problem with the match is it was poorly structured and, like way too long and poorly laid out. You know, like, it was really bloated. Too many conflicting ideas and things like that, you know.
It was also laid out with like an expectation it would have the hottest crowd in the history of wrestling, and it didn't. And so the guys just kind of were standing around waiting for the crowd to go nuts, and they were just very cold that night, which is funny.
Because the next night, like, they're just like losing their shit.
I mean, yeah, it still has like a 7 on cage match. People love that match, the Dwayne match. So what do I know?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh,
Dave liked it.
Well, of course he did. All right, now. We actually do have, and this is so serious what we're going to do in this session that I've actually put down the wine because this is important to me. Because I was a little tipsy in that first one, the Pepsi Max in that.
Yeah, it had you.
Yeah,
just kind of a little off balance there. Yeah.
But this is important because we've seen the wine bit get a little bit out of hand, if we're being honest with each other as friends. Yeah. It hasn't been your fault or mine. But we've watched it happen, and we're all for people enjoying it and having fun. But we do think we should set some parameters so that everyone can play along with us.
Yeah, it feels like when white people take urban slang and don't necessarily know how to apply it and stuff, and it's kind of like what's happening here. You know what I mean?
That's your comparison, not mine. But it's there's some clips being posted. And framed as wine wrestling that I don't know if they need to be wine wrestling. You know, that's just me personally. I think we should gatekeep this. You know,
a little bit. We should at least set the record straight and give people a better understanding of what exactly is wine wrestling. And so, me and you, Joe, as the official wine council, I think we should just
the wine council. That's what we officially. That's the thing everyone calls us, right? The wine council.
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
You have to also, I think, going forward. I think if you want to use wine as an emoji, you have to like get our blessing. You have to come to us, consult the masters, and you gotta let us, you know, use our gavel and like, you know, put it on your forehead, and it's a ceremonial thing, you know, and it's like we've granted you the access.
It could be like Oracle always talks about the old message boards. One of them, when you signed up, you had to take like a quiz.
Yeah,
and it was like, who's better, Mark Henry or Shawn Michaels? Explain your answer. So based. Right. So we're gonna build like an unofficial first trial kind of list on this.
Okay.
Because the wine counts. Because things can change. Sometimes guys lose their wine, sometimes they find it.
We should also make this clear first and foremost.
Yeah.
Even if you can be a good wrestler and not be a wine wrestler.
Sometimes the best wrestlers are not wine wrestlers. It's just a very particular rhythm and flow of professional wrestling that we're discussing here, correct?
Yes, and so if you have all-time favorites or favorites currently in the business that we don't deem wine wrestlers, it doesn't mean that they're poor wrestlers. And in some cases, it's for the best that they aren't wine wrestlers.
I tell you what, I'll fall on the sword on this one. The big man behind me, not a wine wrestler at this point in his life. That's not what he is. He's a big time brawler. You know, that's what he is.
Joe?
Yeah, he's no wine wrestler anymore. You know, that's fine. But I think it's important I establish that so the people understand we're approaching this with real severity. This is not, you know, this is no game to us. We're a council, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have clothes.
First wrestler. If I said to you, we're putting a name on the ballot, who immediately comes to mind? Because there's a name for me that I would like to put forward, but I'll let you go first if you have one.
Well, the ultimate wine wrestler is. I mean, at this stage of the game, you'd have to suggest Randall Keith Orton.
I would agree.
He doesn't wrestle too fast, you know.
Yeah, he moves very slow.
Yeah.
He doesn't run much, but when he does, it looks pretty graceful.
Yes.
He is in danger of going so far with the muscle mass that he may actually his license could eventually be revoked, but he's a long way away from that at this point in the game.
What Randall has for him is that he has a very specific comeback that he holds off until a certain point in the match, and it gets over every time. And he always works within himself, and he stays within that comeback, and that's his high spot. He won't in a given match be like, oh, I'm working this guy, so let me like pop the house and do like a 450, you know, he's too mature for that, you know. And
he's selling, which is, I mean, a staple of wine wrestling.
Oh yeah, you gotta sell a little bit.
Okay, so Randall Orton,
he does a superplex off the top rope. That's another big one.
That's a big mark of the wine wrestler. Okay, my name was going to be also from SmackDown, ironically. It was going to be Andrade El Idolo, who is just so fluid in there and has kind of those classical work rate trimmings that are increasingly absent from our game. You've often commented on the big running flying forearm on the comeback.
So that's the thing. Andrade does a flying forearm into a kip up as this big like game changing part of the match at that spot. That's a mark of a wine wrestler. He also does a top rope crossbody. If you do a crossbody up the top, you're a wine wrestler. You know what I mean? He keeps it simple with that. His moonsault is very well timed. It's graceful, but he's athletic. He looks like a $1,000,000. See, if Andrade was doing moonsaults and he was like about 60 pounds lighter, he's not a wine wrestler. But because he has muscles, right, and he does this, and he's wearing the white gear, I mean, you gotta consider that. He feels like a modern evolution of like a Tito Santana type, but with like snap, and his work is just so sharp and pretty. He has stiff work like the chops and the elbows, but it's not his go-to when it comes to like his offense. He's not trying to get into forearm trades. He'll engage in one if necessary, but his immediate instinct is to lock up and get you to the corner. He'll hit the ropes and give you a drop kick. Drop down a drop kick. He'll do a side headlock takeover and then kip up into position.
Just talking about it gets me excited, dude. It's incredible, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps right now, just picturing the work of this guy.
I would like to put forward a name from All Elite Wrestling.
Before you proceed, it's another reason why he's a wine wrestler. He's positioned as the work rate guy of SmackDown, as like the in-ring standout. Like this guy gives you classics, and the matches are like 3.5. That's really important. You know what I mean?
It is important, yeah.
It's really important. Like that's very like WWF 94. Like that's big.
I'm with you completely. Tremendous stuff. Co-sign on Andrade. My AEW name, and I think you're probably not quite as high on this fella as I am, but I do think you'll agree on the wine element. A classic rival of Randy Orton. I would go with the instant classic Christian Cage.
Oh, he's like a wine legend.
I agree. Yeah.
He's a wine god. Christian Cage at Revolution 2023 against Jungle Boy. Joe, he had an amazing match with Jungle Boy. And did you know that he did like no moves in the match? He just did like punches and sold.
And he had the turtle. That was the first time he did it, right? The turtleneck. I'm pretty sure.
I believe so. Christian Cage is the ultimate wine wrestler. I mean, that match with Darby Allin, this guy is brilliant. When you have that strong of a mind for putting together matches, I mean, my goodness. Again, another guy that doesn't try to go, oh, I'm going to keep up with the kid and do a 450.
Oh, no.
Oh.
You mentioned Darby Allin. He's an interesting one because there are elements of wine.
You know what the elements are? Darby's agonized selling is wine selling.
Yeah.
So I can consult the wine gods above me, and we could have a discussion about this one, because the selling is there. Some of the other elements aren't necessarily winey, so it's tough. But the selling,
It's also he has that part of his game where he can do the chain wrestling, which is also one. You know, the stuff he did with Max and Christian. You mentioned that match, like where he will out wrestle the guy with that kind of Ray Jr. offense. We'll get to him, but I think Bobby. I think he could be on the team. I think he belongs.
Would it be fair to say that his biggest wine matches, hilariously, are with CM Punk and Cody Rhodes?
I would say plus Christian we already mentioned, but the Punk match is very wine. Yes, very. The Cody match I don't remember as well. They're the TNT ones, right?
Yeah. Those had side headlock takeovers and stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, I do. I remember liking those matches. It's been a while. Like the last one's on maybe Full Gear 2020, maybe.
You know why we're part of the Wine Council, Joe?
What?
We appreciate a good 3 3/4. You know,
that's how special.
Those sometimes just hit more for us than a 4.5. You know.
They certainly do, and with that in mind, I just brought him up kind of inadvertently, but there's no point wasting any time. We need to put Ray Jr. on the list, don't we?
Oh, my God. One of the great TV wrestlers of all time. His comeback, where he does the punches and he hits the ropes and he jumps off the middle one and turns around into like that kind of backwards crossbody. I mean, my goodness. The seated senton.
Everything is so... It's effortless, but not in a showy way. It's just he's that good, you know?
Yes.
Just the rhythm, man, incredible.
In a different way, because I'm not saying him and Randy Orton are the same wrestler, but Ray at this stage of the game has a very specific comeback. And he just structures his match where he gets to that point and the place blows every time when he does it. And it's like there's a power and a skill to doing that because, again, in 2024 as wrestling fans, we've seen everything. And you'd think that if you've seen everything, then you have to continue to escalate to impress us. But the truth of the matter is the masters can just do what they always do and do it at certain ways and at certain times in the match and get you every time. To be able to do that, Joe, you have to be a wine wrestler. Rey Mysterio Jr. is a wine wrestler.
He is. I hope the people watching this are as emotional as you and I are doing it, you know, because this is...
Yeah, it's starting to get me. I'm getting choked up.
Yeah, I can see like the guys running ropes and stuff in my, you know, my imagination's running wild. It's a beautiful thing. Feel free to throw names out when, you know, if any come to mind, but I have another one if you are ready to hear me on this.
Go for it.
I think it's time that we show some love to the women's division.
Okay.
I think it's time that we show some love to the great Io Sky.
Man. I got a bit of a hot take on that one, though.
Oh, okay. Go for it.
Io Sky, the former Io Shirai, has always been an incredible professional wrestler. She didn't become a wine wrestler until this year.
Okay. Is it in your mind, because I've spoken about this previously elsewhere, we haven't had this conversation. I actually think there is a comparison to be made with Ray in how she's adjusting to TV.
Yes.
That's and the way she's placing her high spots specifically in a way that's just delightful.
That's really what it is, Joe. It's the structuring of her match to like fit in these bite-sized muffins of matches. You know what I mean? It's like a cupcake. You know, you watch Raw and you hit hour 2, and then Io has 9 minutes, and she hits the rope. She does that kind of quadruple front flip thingy, and then does her shotes, does the moonsault to the outside. You go to commercial, you come back, she's in a headlock or whatever. You know, she's firing back up. She does her meteoras and all that kind of thing. It's just that's another person, Joe, that's mastered the art of the 3.5.
Right. She's kind of like Raw's Andrade, right?
Exactly. You know, I noticed that we were trending in this direction with her when she had that match with Mia Yim at the beginning of the year. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw that and I was like, man, this was lovely, you know. And again, she's just like pumping out these 3.5s, and it's just like, man, Io Sky, what a master.
Tremendous. I think she's a great addition to the team. My question is, and this may be controversial, does the AEW... Now, we both agree the AEW Women's Division has come a long way, right? and there are great wrestlers in that division. Certainly, I mean, some of my favorites. But are they wine wrestlers? I think is a different question. I'm not sure.
It's a great question. You know, I was thinking of like a Serena Deeb, for example, because on paper she has all these qualities that would suggest that she's wine, but there's just something about her work that's just too. What's the word I want to use?
Dry.
Yeah, just dry and hollow and just unengaging with human life and emotion, and just so she falls short despite having the qualities of being a wine wrestler.
Right.
So then it's like, who else can we turn to in that women's division? Statlander and Willow are bombastic, larger than life personalities, and they're probably the best wrestlers in the division. I don't know if I'd call them wine wrestlers though.
Yeah,
They're more like ECW girlies. I don't know.
And Athena is like fucking Big Van Vader at this point, dude. She just clobbers people. I mean, I think Athena's close just because she's that good, but she's so physical. I don't know if she could be a wine wrestler. If I'm being honest, I'd love to put her in, but I'm being fair here.
It's tough. You know, Queen Aminata is trending there. I think Queen Aminata. I think she's on the road to becoming a wine wrestler. I think it's just tough because the way the women achieve good matches in AEW is not by wine methods, and that's fine. You know, but it's like, who goes out there and just gives you a steady, nice time for 10 minutes, and it's tough. It's really.
Well, I think Mercedes Moné has a case as a wine Hall of Famer. But is she currently on the team? I don't know if we can say she is, unfortunately.
Yet to be determined, I think. You know,
because she's done it. I mean, she's been on the All-Star team previous years. She was incredible in that regard. TV wrestler and stuff. Oh my God, she was great. But I don't know if we can put her right now. Mariah is she's more physical. Tony doesn't really fit that. I don't know, man. I'm not seeing the name. It's kind of bumming me out.
Yeah, it's tough.
Madison Rain?
It is a tough one. It is a tough one.
Dude, these rosters are very big. Have you noticed the wrestling rosters of the big two are like hilariously large?
Yeah, there's like way too many wrestlers in these rosters.
There is, and distinctly very few wine wrestlers. Now, I have some controversial names. Someone that you've been pretty low on over the last year, and I've got to be honest, I kind of was with you for a minute, and I'm coming back around, but I think has classically been a wine wrestler. Do you know where I'm going with this one or not?
No.
I was trending towards Claudio Castagnoli, who has been a legendary wine wrestler.
Yes.
Had a couple dips there, had a couple collision tapings where he looked kind of bored. But he's Claudio Castagnoli, and he still has those European uppercuts. You know, I feel like he's got a case at the very least.
Claudio gets to pass. He can enter the room. He can enter the room. Just out of sheer respect, if nothing else, it's like, of course you can enter, Claudio. He's that all-star that gets voted into the all-star game partially out of reputation. You know, it's like, all right, yeah, I know it's 2010, but Allen Iverson, you can enter. Nah, that's not me saying Claudio's washed, if anything, but he does have to resharpen his wine characteristics. You know? But he's still a wine wrestler, of course. He has, like you just said, he has the European uppercuts.
And he's like tall and jacked too.
Yeah. That's a big part of this.
It is. We can't forget that part of it. We have to be important. It's different. If your gimmick is being small, that's different. But
otherwise, you have to have muscles.
Yeah, factual. Talk to him. All right. I'm looking here. I'm not wavering on this one. I'm sorry, but we need to get the FTR on the team. Why they run the ropes, brother? The fluidity, the drop down tackle. I mean, effortless headlock takeover. The works. I don't know if you want to fight this, but I got FTR.
FTR are a wine tag team. There are times instinctually where they may overdose on wine, just drink too much. Part of being a wine wrestler also is moderation and understanding and responsibility, you know. And with them, it's like, you pour yourself a glass, Dax. You don't have to pour 6. Don't get drunk. You know, don't get drunk. Just get a little tipsy.
Yeah. I think it's just, Brett was so rich with the wine. You can overreach sometimes trying to recreate just how much Bret Hart loved wine.
Yeah, and it's just like it's collision, bro. It's not it's not double or nothing. Just take it easy.
Yeah. Bryan Danielson is just like that just goes without saying that it's pointless, and it's just like, of course, Bryan Danielson's on the team. He can wrestle any style too. Like he's
absolutely. Yeah. And the thing is, like, every version of Danielson's a wine wrestler. That's the funny part. Like heel Bryan, stiff Bryan, plucky babyface. Like it's all no, come on.
I'm scanning the rosters here.
Mm-hmm.
An interesting candidate that's emerged, or kind of re-emerged, I should say, because I think she was a very strong candidate a few years back and had a little bit of a downswing. I would look at a Bayley. Very smart wrestler, very restrained wrestler, understands her role and what the match is trying to achieve. Good selling. Doesn't hit very hard. I think Bayley is someone we should add to the shortlist.
The thing about Pam is the physicality that's needed to be a wine wrestler isn't there, but the wrestling IQ and the match building and the match structuring is wine wrestling.
Yeah.
The people weren't particularly with it until like the very end, but the match that she was able to construct with Nia Jax at SummerSlam, that was wine adjacent, Joe. And I know like a lot of people weren't really blown away by that match, but the way they built to the big stuff and the logic within the match and the way she was able to put together an in kayfabe, in match game plan / strategy is wine wrestling. Because again, a key tenet of wine wrestling also is structure and strategy. Bret Hart's a wine wrestler because he had strategies for different opponents. Bayley does that too. Bayley doesn't approach a match with Nia Jax the way she approaches a match with Io Sky or with Tiffany Stratton. For that alone, I have to allow her into the room, even though the Rose Plant is a really bad move.
That's the thing. I think because people don't know this, but we actually have coaches in regards to wine wrestling.
Yeah,
and if we can get those minds to talk to Bayley, I think we can complete the process. There's two names that I want to circle because I'm not sure, and I think they're such big stars they deserve a conversation.
Okay,
I'm talking about Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. Roman has that pacing that's kind of inherently arrogant in a way that Pops mean is very wine-esque, very Randall-esque.
Yeah. Like Roman Reigns
has flaws, though. It's difficult. I don't know.
Yeah, main event singles Roman, when it has a kind of prize fight, box office, like big match feel, big fight feel, there is a wine element to that.
Yeah.
And there's a wine element to the poise that he shows in really heated environments, kind of like a playoff road game where like the bell rings and the crowd is going crazy, and he's able to control the pace and remain even keeled, even when the house is going insane. You know, matches like him against Sami Zayn, matches like him versus Drew McIntyre at Clash of the Castle 2 years ago. Those are matches where he's walking out there like, I've been in this situation. It's a playoff game. I know what I'm doing. I know how to win. That's wine. However, the pacing, which again, it's fine as the problem is sometimes it doesn't escalate in the exact way you would like it to, or other times it does, but then it kind of gets disjointed with other types of forms of storytelling and things of that nature. The acting that sometimes happens in these matches is not wine wrestling, and that's kind of a barrier. The trash talk is fine, but when the trash talk turns from trash talk to cutscene, again, it's a tough one. So Roman is difficult. I think Roman, when he wrestles Cody Rhodes, it's always wine wrestling. WrestleMania 39's main event was a wine match.
Yes.
Cody and Roman was delightful. Roman Reigns, I would say, generally speaking, is up and down with it. He delves into winedom here and there, but he is not a wine wrestler.
The cinematic flair is an issue.
It is. However, because of who he is, the Wine Council remains they remain watchful of him, and they have their eyes on Roman Reigns. Because
And
at
we
any
support
moment,
Roman Reigns. We support his ventures in wrestling.
correct. Now with Cody Rhodes, you would think theatrical, over the top at times, tries to get a little too cute, tries to do certain moves that like a Cody Rhodes type doesn't even need to do, like a jumping, backing cutter thing and things of that nature. It's a bit much, but Cody Rhodes is a wine wrestler in my opinion.
I'm close. I don't know.
His main event pay-per-view style is wine wrestling.
It has strong elements of wine wrestling. Certainly, there are the kind of classical work rate match elements he puts in his matches in terms of the pace and such, which pop me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that reason, I'm more than happy to push it to put him on the team. The only thing I would say to him as a warning, he can be very loose with his selling at times, which alarms me.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a habit, and it's something that's it's gone quiet enough that I'm willing to look past it for now. But if I ever see him do an indie spot with Carmelo Hayes again on national television, he will be receiving a phone call from the Wine Council. And that's what I'm saying. He has to be careful with that stuff, Ibou, and you can tell him that. But he's on the team.
Yeah, it's a strike. You know what I'll counter with you, though? Something we haven't brought up to this point. He does wine angles. The way Cody Rhodes runs out, slides through the bottom rope, enters the ring, and cleans house fighting the bad guys. That's wine wrestling, Joe. Is it not?
I hadn't considered that, the wine angle.
I know you never thought about it. Like he when it comes to babyface saves, babyface runouts, cleaning the house, or running out there with a chair to get the villains to scurry away, when he throws those punches, those really well done worked punches, that's some wine shit right there. That's Stinger. That's Mid-South.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's a good call. He's on the team. Also on the team, Hall of Famer, still got it. His brother, the natural Dustin Rhodes.
Dustin Rhodes has been a wine wrestler his entire life.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do when you work for Vince Russo for a couple of those years?
Dude.
Vince Russo, his agenda is to stomp on any like semblance of wine anywhere. He detects wine and he's like, get that out of here.
Dustin Rhodes is 55 years old.
I want to know that's crazy. I want to think of what's the whiniest wine match of '98. Trying to think, like in that setting, in that environment, was there any match that like flirted with wine?
Some of the only Attitude Era stuff that's like mini wine would be like, because you know how like no matter how short the match was, Owen would still do like his chain wrestling sequence where he chips
I
up.
actually have an answer. I have an answer.
Okay.
Steve Austin and Shawn is a wine match at 14. You know why? The way Austin was chasing Shawn around the ring, and then Shawn would slide back in the ring, and then like Austin would come in and clothesline him, and Shawn would bump for that, and he'd pop back up and bump again for another punch. Shawn's bumping was wine bumping.
That's fair. I agree with that. Shawn could go over the top for the wine, but that match isn't over the top. He can't be because of his back, right? So
he has to kind of be a little more measured and just kind of get the heat on Steve Austin and bump for him. So that is a bit of a wine match in the heart of 1998.
I like it. Yeah. What about young Daniel Garcia, who has shown kind of precocious understanding of the wine, but I don't know if he's always been positioned in a way to fully exploit the power of the wine.
He hasn't harnessed the power of the wine or channeled it much, except for flashes like against Jon Moxley or Bryan Danielson. But he's a wine wrestler through and through, and I don't even struggle with that one.
Yeah, we need the future too, don't we? We need the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's a guy who you've not been a big fan of. No. I've been up and down on, but I think wrestles in a way that we should respect and we should celebrate.
Okay.
I'm talking about Switchblade Jay White, actually. Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Never, ever is one to get worried about boring people, which is important. His stuff is crisp. He has a great look. Ripped. I think he has a great deal of potential as a wine wrestler, even if it hasn't necessarily translated to the All Elite Fleet. What do you think?
his work looks excellent, save for when he does the finisher dance. Sometimes he does a finisher dance, and he'll do the tango with someone right before doing a Blade Runner. But aside from that, his work is just it looks really good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think
he controls
he fits the
pace.
bill. Yeah,
He wrestles like a guy that's wrestling to win rather than wrestling to impress. And that's another big thing if you're a heel wine wrestler is, are you wrestling to just win the match, or are you wrestling to get a star rating? The thing is, when you're really good at that, you get a star rating anyway because you're just good. Jay White is a wine wrestler.
Is Jeff Jarrett a wine wrestler?
Yeah, he does horse shit. He does wine horse shit. You know, people do horse shit, right? And it's like, man, this is overbooked. This is chaotic. But he has the wine horse shit, Joe, where there's like chaos and unpredictability and jeopardy, and it kind of comes into place and it feels unbridled and just wily. And he is a wine wrestler, in my opinion. The punches, the runouts, the willingness to bleed, the blood in the blonde hair.
Yeah.
The horse shit that's very Memphis when it happens sometimes. He's a wine.
As an old man wrestler, I think I think he fits the bill.
He's gonna have a wine match with the lumberjack element's a bit much, but he's gonna have a wine match with Hangman Page.
Yeah, who often Hangman, if you're wondering, he's kind of more blunt force than wine wrestling.
Yeah,
there's some wine matches. Bryan Danielson matches are wine matches, but yeah.
Reminds me of like Sheamus, who like I love very much, and I think he's a very good TV wrestler, but I don't know if I'd say he's a wine wrestler.
I wouldn't. John Moxley he ticks many boxes. This isn't one of them.
No.
What about Okada? Are we going to pretend, or are we just going to ignore him?
20 world IWGP champion Okada from like 8 years ago is a wine wrestler.
Yeah.
Now he's just like a pretty good wrestler. I don't know if he's a wine wrestler. You know?
Yeah, I'm with you. Kenny Omega.
You know what?
He can be bombastic, but he can equally do a fucking wine match, bro. He can definitely do it.
I'll tell you what. He's probably the most explosive, dynamic guy to still be a wine wrestler, is what I'm going to say. His at the highest level. Listen, here's the thing. At the highest level, all that flippy dippy, kicky choppy stuff, when it's executed the way Kenny Jerome Omega does it, you almost want to cry. Kenny Omega's execution is pristine. It's immaculate. And he implements the classical elements like the structure and the selling and the pacing, and his sense of escalation from beginning to end in a 30-minute plus match is among the best. At his best, it's among the best you will see ever in the history of this medium. And so for those reasons, even though he does a running knee to people's heads, even though he does poison ranas, even though he does drop kicks to the back of people's heads, Kenny by God Omega, welcome to the Wine Council.
He has range too. Like some of these, the match he had with Jack Perry, where he's like the NWA champion. What a wrestler!
He pretty much was that for the very like end of his title run too, because he was hurt. He used to hurt to kind of do all the crazy stuff, so he just did different things, and he still was having excellent matches because he's brilliant.
Yes. By contrast, Takeshita is so young and fresh that he hasn't yet had to add the wine elements. Would you agree?
He's just firepower at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's just dunking in 3-pointers and, blocking shots.
He doesn't need the wine yet, does he? But
he doesn't need.
When he needs it, we'll be here for him.
Yes. We'll circle back to him in a couple of years.
Yeah. We support him. I'm looking at the AEW roster here to see if we've missed anyone.
I think Pac, he's, he has the physical build of a wine wrestler.
He does.
He has the build of like a wine work rate guy. his chops, you know, like.
Should we put him in?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, here's one. We need some undercard guys.
Okay.
Couple names for you.
Okay.
Rocky Romero.
Yes. Immediate yes.
And I was also going to suggest Matt Sydal. I don't feel strong on it. I'm just throwing names out there.
He can be steady, you know?
Yeah. Correct. Roderick Strong.
You know, I'm glad you brought him up because, like, a lot of those types of guys, when they were technically in their, like, primes, you know, like, I wouldn't call them wine wrestlers, but something about the athletic indie type, when they hit 40 and they do like 75% of what they do, but slow it down just a little bit because they're just kind of old, and then they have like a couple extra tricks. They just turn into wine guys, you know. Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley are wine wrestlers now, and they were not wine wrestlers in 2009.
Especially Shelley. He could even bore me sometimes. That's pretty impressive.
His TNA run, he had matches where like he was just fucking around and he's taking the piss in there.
All right. Will Ospreay is too exciting. Can't be allowed. Too exciting.
He's too fun.
Yeah.
Roderick Strong, you mentioned him. I didn't get to answer, but he's a wine wrestler.
Absolutely. Okay.
He likes to have memorable and nifty TV matches on B&C shows, which makes him a wine wrestler.
You got to see that match with Beef, bro. You got to see that match.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When you wrestle on a C show, and you just have like these really like notable and memorable 3 1/4s, you are a wine wrestler.
Name from the WWE, Chad Gable.
Yes.
He's on, right? On the team. What do we do with Punker at this point? He's a Hall of Famer, but we've seen so little, you know, and it feels like he's going to trend more to being like a veteran brawler than like a wine wrestler to me. I don't know.
He's so good at selling juice chops, though.
True.
You know?
True.
He pumps his fists and says, "Come on."
Oh, fuck it. He's got to be on the team, man.
Yeah, you got to put CM Punk.
This is the thing. Those of you watching this, making notes, I'm sure you all are. This is a long list we're giving you guys here. You're like, we're not limiting you too much, right? Well, I mean, this is only the big 2 also. I mean, down the line, we may get into other promotions.
Absolutely. In fact, I'll throw one out there right now.
Go for it.
You know, Joe, I guess this will be where I unleash this take, Joe. You know, I'm a huge fan of CMLO, Consejo Mundial de Lucha Libre, Joe. You know, biggest Mexican company in the world, biggest, longest existing wrestling promotion. Yeah. And, you know, when people look at their young talent, like a lot of people tend to jump at like Máscara Dorada, the new Máscara Dorada, as a young guy. He's been positioned well. He's won various tournaments. He's faced people like Mystico in main events. But my eye jumps at Atlantis Jr. And the thing about Atlantis Jr. that makes him a wine wrestler, in my opinion, Joe, is three specific qualities. Number 1, he has that gear, which is you know that gear where it's like you have the pant legs, but over the pant legs are the black like trunks, like Terry Funk would have, or like, you know, Dynamite had at times and stuff like, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
He has that. No one wears that anymore, you know, but that he has that. That's wine gear, you know.
I'm sorry. I know we've gone 43 minutes being completely sincere on this, but I can't shake the idea of someone watching this taking us entirely seriously, being like, these pieces of shit.
When you have the different colored pant legs with the underwear, you know what I mean? Like, it's just that's the wine gear.
I still haven't recovered from wine angles. All right. Let's get through the rest of this WWE roster here. Okay, Drew McIntyre, he's too physical. Red chest merchant. I'm sorry. Great wrestler.
No. He's not a wine wrestler, no.
Now, Gunther, he's got too many strings to his bow. He is red chest adjacent, but he also has that classic pacing and psychology. Gunther's a wine wrestler. He's
a wine wrestler, yeah, of course. He had a good match with Mustafa Ali, Joe. Like, he's a wine wrestler.
There you go. What about Finn Balor?
You know what's funny? In his original prime, he was not a wine wrestler. when he was Prince Devitt and early Finn Balor NXT. You know when he became a wine wrestler? The second NXT run, where he just took you right on the fucking ground and just grinded you, and half the audience was bored and changed the channel to AEW, and the other half was like, hold on a second. You know?
He's also, I mean, his ceiling now is like 3.25, which is godly. Like, what a beast, right?
Yeah,
Just does it every week.
His
Incredible.
ceiling is dropping by like every 3 months. It's incredible. Before, like a year ago, he could give you a 3.5 in the main event of Raw. Now it's like a 3.25. It's like, fuck, okay. Yeah.
Here's one. Sami Zayn, Ibou, Sami Zayn. Carry on with Finn. Go for it. What was you saying?
No, yeah, I was just saying it's funny. People are talking about the upcoming match of Bad Blood, which is him and Priest. And I don't know if you've seen their Takeover in Your House match, but it's quite good. But it's good in that like kicky, strikey, like ROH PWG type of way. And they're not going to have that type of match this time around, of course, right? And it's funny because someone said to me, like, do you think Finn can carry Damien in Atlanta? And I thought about that, and I said, Priest is the one doing more dynamic and inspired wrestling at this point. Finn will be happy to just ground the fucker in a headlock and throw some chops, you know? So what's going to happen is he's just going to bump on punches and shit. And yeah. But yeah,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, no, it'll be, because the story's over, like that match will get over, you know?
Yes. Couple names, women's division wise, I'd like to circle.
Okay.
A legend who, even though she was super physical, was so just effortless, such a wonderful watch. Asuka deserves immense respect, even if I think at this point we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think she's pending. I'm not sure about Asuka.
One for the future that we're not going to sign, but we're going to scout is Lyra Valkyria, who has kind of classical technique, you know?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. I'm looking here at the SmackDown roster. AJ Styles is he's like not Danielson, but he's in that category of it's AJ Styles, right? It is what it is. Like he's like SmackDown 6 wrestler now too.
Yes.
Which rules. All right. We've already talked about Andrade. SmackDown is not going to have many wine wrestlers, is it? Let's be honest.
No.
It certainly isn't. I'm looking at this lineup here. I mean, I love LA Knight as a Burger King barbecue guy, but I mean,
exactly. He's an onion ring wrestler, you know, like. Oh my god!
It's so stupid. He's an onion ring wrestler.
He's an onion ring wrestler, you know.
Oh, jeez, good God! All right. Well, I think unless there's anyone on NXT, which I would be. Roxanne Perez.
Yes.
Franchise player, bro.
Roxanne Perez is a wine wrestler.
Fabulous. All right, I have the final list, bro. I have it.
Okay,
so we'll put Atlantis Jr. to the side because we're going to circle back to the rest of the world.
Okay.
And we're also going to do a Hall of Fame one day for another day. Okay. So here's what we got right now. It's a long list, folks, to lock in. We've got Randy Orton, we've got Andrade, we've got Christian Cage, we've got Darby Allin, Ray Jr., Io Sky, Claudio Castagnoli, the FTR, Bryan Danielson, Bayley, Cody Rhodes, Dustin Rhodes, Daniel Garcia, Jay White, Jeff Jarrett, Kenny, by God Omega, Pac, Rocky Romero, Matt Sydal, Roderick Strong, Chad Gable, CM Punk, Gunther, Finn Balor, Sami Zayn, AJ Styles, and the future of this franchise, Roxanne Perez.
We're going to win 60 games, Joe.
Oh, bro. You give us 2 hours on national TV with that lineup, imagine the damage we do.
Oh, my
imagine.
God. The 10-man tags.
Oh, don't even get me started. Oh,
I
forgot someone.
What's up?
Dude, I forgot someone. How did we not? Solo Sikoa, right? He's a wine wrestler. Is Solo's on your? He's on your list too, right? He was my first name. I missed it. I just missed him. Yeah, that was my bad, bro. I got carried away. You know, I'm a big fan of the spike finish. I forgot. Like that's something I shouldn't have gone to. Like he's not a wine wrestler. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry about that. That's on me. We don't usually clash on that kind of stuff. That's my bad.
You gotta stop doing that type of thing to me, Joe.
I do.
Like I go through a lot. You know, I'm a very busy guy. I don't sleep that much. I have multiple jobs.
I support multiple people within my family financially and spiritually. And for you to then dump this on my shoulders and talk about Solo Sikoa as a wine wrestler when we have a very respected council that we've spoken about extensively. You know, it's like you're disrespecting me, you're disrespecting the elders, and you're doing it in the name of like fucking Solo Sikoa. Like come on, dude, you know?
Yeah, my therapist said the same thing. Like, I just would constantly go back to the spike. And at one point, she even pulled up like a Jacob Fatu like highlight reel,
right,
to show that there's more to life than the spike.
Mm-hmm.
But I still haven't crossed that bridge, bro. There's something about the way he flares it, and the way he looks at it as a signal to the audience. It takes me back. It takes me back to the Coliseum video. That's what it makes me feel.
I hear that. It's just I just want better for myself and you. You know, like
I appreciate it.
I watched that Cody Cage deal.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a good match.
Yeah.
But yeah, it still wasn't enough for me to, you know, to become a convert. You know what I mean? It's just like, again, I want better for myself, you know?
You do, which is why you're on the heels of our fresh stadium.
Yes.
AEW Grand Slam. You sound great, by the way. We both definitely look and sound fresh.
Absolutely.
And this definitely isn't the wrestling podcast equivalent of a hangover to close out the wine sessions. How you feeling, Bubba?
I feel like shit, and I feel my knee hurts, my feet hurt. I'm very tired. Joe got the wine glass out. Yeah, I'm very, very, very exhausted, and again, working, man. I'm going to be working in a bit, but the thing is, man, when that bell rings, when I walk through that curtain, man, you just kind of make it happen, you know. And this is a wine session, and so it's like we can just be adults here, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, I didn't drink in the last one, and
No.
I felt like I needed a drink today. Yeah, it's just the way I was at. But I'm excited to talk about Grand Slam. I actually thought, and you probably will get into your experience because you were in the building. Of course, I was in gorilla position, which is slightly different.
Right.
But Dynamite was a very good show. I'm aware that the consensus has been that Collision was less good, which I think has affected some people's live experience. But I guess I'll start. What was your highlight of the night?
Of Dynamite or the entire live thing?
The entire live thing. Again, we're going to be very loose with. Ibou's not going to outright spoil stuff, folks. But if you look at the Collision lineup, there's not exactly a G1 final on there to uncover. Right. So yeah, go for it.
And it's funny as I said that, I realized like no, my highlight of the night probably was on Dynamite. I don't know if I have one that stands out above all, but I'll say this: the final countdown is very moving in person. You really do feel it. Like it just overtakes you, man. It's like wow, it's just something about it. So hearing Final Countdown was special. Hilariously, Hook retiring the FTW belt, like I started chanting EC Dub like a fat mark, like the only guy in my section. Like he's retiring it. I thought the match sucked, and then like he's retiring this thing. He's cutting a bad promo right before doing it, and I'm still just like, AC Dub, AC Dub. Let's fucking go.
It was interesting because,
but like, closure, you know.
I didn't hate. Like, I thought the match was just like there. I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't think it was. But I will say, and we'll move on after this. But with respect, the match that Joe had with Hook is increasingly becoming like something that should be studied in science. Yeah.
Even Roddy couldn't do it with him.
Yeah, know? Roddy was really making him be physical, and it didn't come together quite. But I will say, if we're going to be positive about Hook, that was his most like. It wasn't like a good wrestling promo, but he actually felt like a real person, and like it was actually a really cool moment. Taz was, you could tell, it actually did mean a lot to Taz. So like, as much as you're dunking yourself for chanting ECW, it actually was a really cool moment, legit.
Yeah, I was happy it happened because again, you know, I'm not Peter Sinersha, I'm not Taz. I don't. The FTW belt isn't my property, but. As an observer, as someone who's been an ardent fan of Taz's and of ECW's for a long time, I just felt like I got some closure, and it felt like it was the right time to lay this thing to rest and leave the memories alone. You know, I'm big on not beating a dead horse. I'm big on not desecrating legacy. And Taz made a tweet where he listed all the FTW champions, and I remember when he brought this belt back 4 years ago now. And when he gave it a Cage as a vehicle to get Cage over, I was like, I like this. And when it went on Starks at Fighter Fest 2021, it's a great angle / match, and it helped get Ricky over. It worked. And then when he lost it to Hook, again, another great vehicle to get Hook over at the time in 2022. And so the new version of the FTW belt turned into this thing that just helped get guys over. From then on, I think we kind of lost our way.
Yeah, it became a crutch for young Hook. A crutch, I would say.
Absolutely, and then the Jericho business has just been the worst of all of his AEW reboots. And so when Taz starts listing like Jericho and stuff, it just didn't feel right. Jericho's never been known to be a wine wrestler. And
no, he's had a couple wine angles, but I don't know if he's been a wine wrestler.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say it felt like the right time. The prevailing opinion from online fans following Wembley was that it was time to retire the belt. And I remember Taz tweeting, like, I had a great conversation with Tony about the future of the FTW belt. And I was like, okay. But then they started a Roddy thing, and I was like, what the hell is this? I thought they were going to retire the thing. But I guess they wanted to do one more last thing and then retire it in New York.
New York. Yeah.
Right.
I think so. And that was cool. And
it was nice.
Again, the match could have gone worse. Ideally, it would have gone better. I think the Kingdom are just... They had like 2 bumps in the match, and they just absolutely died on both of them. God bless those guys. They love their job.
Big fan, yeah.
What did you make of the post match with the weird like show of respect? What was that about?
Say, like, they're teasing it, and I'm like, nah, Hook, they're gonna jump you, and then they didn't, and the Kingdom turned babyface.
Maybe.
I think.
Maybe it was just to give the title angle that followed like a little bit more honor, I guess, like it was kind of, yeah, because I could see, now that you've mentioned that Taz tweet, I could definitely see Roddy being Taz's choice of opponent, because I remember on his pod back in the day, he would always talk about like Roddy as one of the Ring of Honor guys, and he would love his aggression and his intensity.
Oh, that's awesome.
I could see that. I don't know, but I don't know. I kind of took the handshake as like maybe it gave it a little bit more oomph, that the belt did mean something, I guess. I don't know.
I liked it. I liked how that whole aspect of it was handled, and I saw the video later, and Taz was getting emotional, and this means a lot to him. The FTW belt, it's his creation. It's funny because I remember in 2021, Excalibur would always clumsily ask Taz what FTW meant, and even though Taz created it, for whatever reason, Taz always struggled to actually explain it on commentary. It always killed me. Because like I know what it means and I know the origin, but Taz would try to explain it to like the layman on commentary. And he's like, FTW, it's just it's rebellion, it's doing it your own way, you know what I mean? It's just kind of anti-establishment, it's just a belt for marching to the beat of your own drum. And I'm like, I guess that's not it means fuck the world. It means fuck the world. The truth is, I guess it's less clumsy than going, well, so Shane Douglas didn't want to give me a title shot, and
yeah.
So I was pissed the fuck off, and I told Joey Styles I'm gonna have my own fucking belt, I'll defend my championship, and I called him fuck the world. The way he actually said it in the promo in the original one in '98 was he was like, "This is my world belt. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it the Brooklyn World Belt. You can call it the fuck the world belt. I don't give a shit. It's my championship," and then that's what they called it, the fuck the world championship. But nevertheless, I thought this was well handled, and I was happy for Taz.
I think the belt is just a piece of it, but I think what really matters to Taz is that he's being framed again as a titan of the ring, because the reality is a lot of his WWE run on commentary, like the WWE audience knew him as a commentator for the most part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, what was the ratio of years in ring to out in WWE? It would have been insane. And
oh man, yeah, he wrestled for like a year and then like did another like 5 on commentary or whatever it was.
And by contrast, even though he's not been a wrestler in AEW, because he had the heel manager arm where he put the Taz mission on Cody, he's always been framed as like a coach and a badass and like a pro, And I think it means a lot to him to reclaim that. I don't think I'm talking out of turn to say Taz takes himself pretty seriously, which is fine. And good for him, dude. He seems to be having fun. Now, speaking of fun, you mentioned Bryan Danielson, who's a pretty good wrestler. and Final Countdown. They had the setup of the, give me a 10 count, I'll win by forfeit, which I'll get out of the way now because I don't really want to focus on it. I did not particularly like the way that they built to and set the stage for Brian and Nigel personally. I think they could have done a much better job with it. That's life. It is what it is. I was thankful the match happened. I'm going to be completely honest. I really liked the match on first go round because I found it to be very moving, and it actually made me quite emotional the moment when they were chain wrestling and New York clapped. It felt like going back in time. I will concede that on rewatch, I did think that you could see and this is not a criticism, man. He's been out of the ring forever, really.
Yeah,
but you can see that, it's been a long time and you can't get back those years. And I think Nigel did as good as you could ask him to do. But he hasn't had a singles match in like 12 years, dude. I thought it was a good match, though. And very, very moving that it happened. I'm very happy for Nigel. That's where I was at on it. What did you think?
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like my prevailing opinion with a lot of those Danielson novelty matches that he's had over the last year, where it's like, my big take is I'm happy that happened. I think that the build unfortunately did affect how I received this a little bit, only a little bit, in the sense that, like, I was talking to my brother about this, and he was saying, like, let's say he was telling me hypothetically, if that was Nigel's last match, don't you kind of wish that, like, I don't know, like the end of it and maybe the post match is a little more ceremonial? And I said, yeah, I kind of would have liked that, but I also thought about, like, knowing Nigel, he probably is like, nah, just tap me out and roll me the fuck out of there. Like, I could see Nigel's been like, nah, I'm an asshole, I'm a bastard, I'm a tap, and then let's just move the fuck on, and then I'll tweet whatever I want to tweet. So I could see both sides, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was really happy to see this. This is the match. This match is the reason why I went to Queens. And folks, it is not easy to get to Queens, New York, and it's 10 times worse to get out of Queens, New York. But I made the trek primarily for Nigel McGuinness. I had to see Nigel and Brian. I literally just had to, and so I was happy it happened. It was almost like a no-brainer. Like, once Nigel came back in the Casino Gauntlet, you're like, oh, he has to fight Brian now. And he did what he could, and I thought he looked pretty good. And they looked pretty good. You know what I find interesting? I've noticed something about myself, Joe, when it comes to watching wrestling live, and I think I might be in the minority here, to the point where people might see me as like a sociopath. I think I like watching wrestling better on TV.
I don't think that makes. I think it's actually a reflection of the way a lot of matches are wrestled now. The main event of this show, which we'll get to, I actually think is just an objectively better experience at home because of the
little details.
Yes, it is, and like the way Darby's selling with his face, and there's the blood around the mat. I don't think you're crazy. I think wrestling's TV now, dude. Like, you guys are like the studio audience. I know that sounds like dumb.
Yeah,
and I kind of hate that those words come out of my mouth, but it's kind of what it is. I mean,
yeah, like, it feels like, because I've noticed this. I've been in matches that are very audience participation friendly, and I've noticed how the inclination for me, whether it's something I'd be into if I was watching them or not, the inclination is, oh, this is finally the part of the show where I get to kind of engage and feed back to them, and they give back to me, and so I have to take part in this, and I have to play along, so to speak, right? And so that's why, to be completely honest, that's probably why, acts like the Acclaimed are over. It's like, it's or like some of the more, broad, simpler acts that you'd see in like WWE. Like, I get it now that, like, when you're at a show, you get it. Whereas some of these more like nuanced wrestlers, sometimes that doesn't like necessarily translate like when you sit far back. And so it's interesting. I'm watching like not to skip over because I'll get back to Danielson, but like I'm watching Darby and Mox, and I'm like, this is a very good match, right? But I just felt like I was missing pieces. Like I could just tell. It was weird. Yeah. I could just tell like that there are like little things happening there, like whether it be, I don't know, like him grinding an elbow on his cheek or something, or like Darby making a face or whatever it is, or like the selling on the outside. There's just something about how they wrestled that I'm like, I know for a fact that like there's just little flourishes and details in here that like would have enriched the match for me and made it even better than just very good. And I also felt that a little bit with Danielson. But the thing about Danielson is he can do all of that stuff. He can be kind of like,
he can also do the wrestling for the cheap seats kind of panto type stuff, and he also can do the detailed wrestling. And I noticed that because when he kicked out and started firing up and just stood up and like basically like just started hulking up essentially, New York literally went from quiet to like, all right, this is our chance to like just get right with Danielson now. And I felt that it was like I'm watching them kind of like grapple and stuff, and then I got a surge of electricity. And to that point, I know I'm all over the place, but it's also why, to be honest, I was really looking forward to the Young Buck Will Ospreay Fletcher match live, because I was like, okay, this is going to be a crowd pleaser where they just do a lot of energetic, athletic stuff, and I knew that like that would play well live. It'll be a surge of energy, and I get to marvel at all this stuff, and then like be like scream what at all the kickouts, right? And that's the stuff that'll translate well. And so, like when that came along, like it played out exactly as I expected, and it worked for the live house.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that because I did think the tag match was the best match on the show, to be honest. I think there's a very interesting conversation to be had regarding Darby and Mox, which I liked a lot, but I think it's interesting. We'll get back to it. To the Brian and Nigel point, I think there was a clash, to be honest, at core to your point about Nigel preferring the idea of not having like a hero's departure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I think you get into the complications of the hardcore fan, in the sense that I have a great deal of admiration for what Nigel tried to, and I think actually mostly pulled off with the way he presented himself, which was basically as a deeply resentful man who felt he had finally found the perfect time to challenge his old foe. And he had a bunch of tricks, but really when they went blow for blow, he got battered, really, didn't he? Like when he would trade strikes, he didn't have it. When he would grab him, Brian would out-grab. But he'd hang in there and he had tricks and he had the arm to attack. And I really admire that was his approach. And I think there's a lesson for young wrestlers to learn in how he approached it. He wasn't trying to fool you, like it was honest in that way.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is I don't know if that's what Arthur Ashe and the AEW audience wanted. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know. They may have. I don't know. But that's where you have like a generational split almost,
That's interesting you said that, because like what you pointed out, right, is well done. But that house probably would have been even more electric for just like your standard rank and file, back and forth, hard hitting, like modernized, that kind of like streamlined New Japan, like hard hitting, just back and forth wrestling match. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, because I'm thinking like, would that be less interesting? Probably. But then it's weird because it'd be less interesting, but it also probably has like a higher star rating technically. You know what I mean? It's weird.
It's a weird thing. Yeah, it's weird. Like, I appreciate Nigel's approach, and I think there's a lot to be said for it. I think the AEW audience is so inside. They see Nigel. They don't see Nigel as a villain. And like, even if they're like play along and boo him, they're like happy he's getting the match. And like, Nigel wrestled it like he was like Jesse hopping in there with Hogan, like. But there's no kids in the crowd. Like, man, kill Nigel. Like most of the people are like, oh, I'm so glad I'm seeing this. So it's a different thing. It's a hard thing. Obviously, this is a hilarious conversation because Nigel spent his career wrestling in front of like the most hardcore fans imaginable. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I think there's a lot to be said and a lot to be appreciated about Nigel's approach. And I'm very, very happy for him. And I think he did a really good job. I want to stress that. I mean, he had some moments where you could see that, he'd been on it, but his technique, grappling-wise, held up. He still throws one hell of a lariat. My goodness.
The rebound lariat is so sick.
Yeah, and it looked great. And it's still no one does it as good as him. Still at
I took notice of that. I was like, so many people like, oh my goodness, listen. I think Kyle O'Reilly is a phenomenal wrestler.
Yeah.
That's not one of his better moves.
No.
It's not one of his better moves.
And Moxley's one sucked too. Moxley's one was terrible.
The one that he would do in WWE where like it was so like clumsy.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it came off well. And I will say it did. If you are an AEW only viewer and you've never seen their matches, I do think it like was satisfying while also delivering for those of us that are like nerds. And so that's what you can do, right?
Yeah, I think if you only watch AEW, it still functions as a good match of like this
Yeah.
commentator guy that's been talking shit about Bryan the whole time that you hear as a former wrestler just facing Bryan and trying to match him and do it with wit. I think it still works in that way. And then if you're an ROH fan, it's nice closure.
Yes. Let's go to what I personally cited as my match of the night. I don't know if you agree with that or not. The tag title match, Fletcher and Ospreay, the Young Bucks. It was very obvious from the first bell. The Bucks were like locked in. They wanted to make a statement. I felt that, and I thought they did a really good job. It was the most snappy they looked. There was playing the hits, which is generally what they do at this point because they have many of them to pick from. If we're being real.
Yes.
And so I don't mean that as an insult, but they were playing that. You could tell they were really moving and trying to. They were basically maximizing what they have left, which is still an awful lot. I think that's become obvious. They still are very capable of having great matches. I think this was one of them. Will Ospreay, which you can speak to the live. I mean, he's the most explosive, dynamic, offensive wrestler on earth, isn't he? I mean, God Almighty. What did you make of that in the building, brother?
This was a great match. When Will Ospreay's theme hit, like there was a noticeable shift in the building. I think it speaks to the power of the opening notes of his theme song, to be honest with you, because it just we're sitting and then dun 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 dun. You just feel like an eruption, like around us, like, you just hear the eruption around you. And you're like, oh shit! And I turned to my brother. I'm like, oh, this is a star walking in, And he did feel like a star, and I thought this match was what I needed. It's kind of funny. Like I have different desires out of wrestling when I'm there live versus when I'm watching it at home. And I said not that like if I watched this at home, I'd be like, oh, I wouldn't like this because I certainly would like love it. But there's a bigger need for this type of match when I'm going to a show live than there would be if I was watching a show at home. Does that make sense? I needed this in the viewing. I wanted to come away from Arthur Ashe with at least one match like this. I guess is the best way I could put it. And so I'm watching the match, and one of the things I took notice of was it was very vintage Young Bucks, like you said, very 2021. Especially more so, not just with like the combinations and just them being a little bit more snappy, but in the layout. Because I felt like they haven't done a stacked closing stretch to that degree where it's like counter, near fall, save, kick out, near fall, counter, reversal, like a twists and turns and like multiple twists and turns and throwing you off, making you bite on like, oh, that's definitely the finish there. Oh, it's not. Oh, that's definitely the finish. Oh, it's not. The Aussie Open move. Oh, that's not the finish. Oh, the belt shot. That's definitely the finish. What? Oh, then the EVP trick. Like that was very 2021. That was very like vintage excessive Young Bucks. And you know what's funny about it, Joe, is it's so fascinating how I feel about this because for years I struggled with the Young Bucks' approach to tag team wrestling because it's not my natural inclination or my natural taste in wrestling. But they were so deft at it. And hilariously, over the last year and a half, they've kind of abandoned that version of their match. And it's kind of like, damn, like, without that, though, it's like you're not the Young Bucks. Like, that's what makes you guys the Young Bucks.
Yeah.
And without that Young Bucks match, AEW almost feels like they're missing a bit of they're missing a go-to play call that they would use to make their shows electric, if that makes any sense. It was almost like when you look at AEW's toolbox, one of their big things was the crazy, over-the-top, spectacular Young Buck match. And so without that, again, like I said, it just felt weird. And I say all that to say we talk about the tag division and the struggles and this and that. I saw this graphic and I said they're gonna like do everything they literally physically can because they're facing Ospreay. And I knew, I'm like, they respect this guy and they know his reputation of being a great wrestler. They're not gonna have a 3.5-star match with Will Ospreay and stand out. He's having crazy matches. Everybody, they're like, we're gonna fucking figure it out and summon whatever we have and dig deep and have our greatest match possible with this guy. And it happened. And so I knew it was gonna be this good, but I also felt as I'm watching it again is like I can nitpick at certain things or say certain things like I don't love about like the layout, but at the end of the day, I think AEW needs the Young Bucks to be this, to be AEW at full power. It's kind of like the conclusion I came to. And so this was spectacular. I thought this was the jolt of energy that I wanted in the live experience. And I also think this is pretty comfortably, at least on first viewing, I'll rewatch, but it's pretty comfortably the best match of the entire taping. I could always do without a little bit of Don Callis and wrenches and things of that nature. But, you know, I get it. They're telling stories, brother. I thought this was excellent. Even with like the things that maybe would have annoyed me if I was just kind of watching it at home.
Yeah, there were a couple quirks. You mentioned Don Callis. That I don't think that stuff's interesting at all, but it feels like I've seen a lot of it, and I'd like it to stop. In terms of structure, I do think they may have gone. They went so crazy before the ad that I was kind of like, man, they're really gonna go to an ad and do some heat now after that. But whatever, it's TV. I thought it was great. I thought it was the best match on the show, and also like what you're describing came across totally at home. Like, this was the match that New York was into and excited for. Like they were polite to Brian and Nigel, and they appreciated it, but they wasn't like rocking.
Mm-hmm.
And the main event, they like I think struggled with in some ways. To be totally honest, you can speak to that in a second, but this was the one that they lived and died on the near falls. I will say I'm fascinated by it. The Bucks love that finish of like the one kick out, like you mentioned the kick out stretch, but then their thing they do a lot now is like the finish is not, it's not the finish you expect. He kicks out and then they immediately go to the finish anyway. And I don't know how I feel about it. I still haven't decided. Like they did it at Wembley too. Like they did the exact same thing. The belt shot on the O'Connor roll, kick out, BTE trigger. And it's like, I don't know if I think it's good or not. Like the crowd pops for the near fall, but then you immediately just pin them. So I don't you might be better off just getting heat on the finish. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I feel about it. It's weird.
I think it's they're attempting subversion because it's like, oh, heel finish, and then oh no, it's over. So I guess it's just that last extra bit of doubt. I suppose is the idea behind it.
It's interesting.
I guess so. Yeah.
So I'm always for guys playing around with stuff, and I mean those guys have forgotten more about wrestling psychology than I'll ever know. So there's obviously a reason they're doing it, right? They've done it now at Wembley and Arthur Ashe. It's clearly saying they like about it, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, let's talk about the cup. We talk about Hook. I'm going to be brief on this because I don't think you have a lot to say. Mariah has not got off to a great start as women's champion. I thought her and Yuka actually really struggled to get on the same page, if I'm honest. Especially the first half. I didn't have much positive to say about it, unfortunately. I would have liked to. Did you have anything on the women's world title match?
No. What I actually I have one thing to say.
Right.
Being there live, it's apparent like who is and isn't over, and it always is, right? But when a match graphic pops up and there's like a arena wide exodus towards the bathrooms and the concession stands, it says something. And literally everybody ran to go get some hot dogs, and I was also trying to get some chicken tenders. They were $24 for 3 tenders. So I said, fuck this. I'm walking away. And then you hear ding, 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 ding. And then you literally hear some people going, oh, fuck, it's over already? And but what was interesting, Joe, is you hear Willow Nightingale's theme blast. I kid you not. Multiple people, you would have thought like a volcano was erupting from the side or something, because most people just stood and started to kind of like speed walk back, like, oh shit, just to see it or whatever. People peering through peering through the curtain to see like what was happening. So that was interesting. But yeah, I guess the point I'm making is people don't seem to care about Mariah May.
Yeah, I think we kind of, there's a lot of work that needs to be done that's not her attached to Tony, and I think the promotion in victory lapping about the angle, and that's fair enough. You're entitled to a victory lap. I think they may have got a bit carried away and not realized that actually still a lot of work to do on the individual Mariah May, and maybe help her out a little bit. I mean, I love Yuka, but like to the AEW audience, that you're not giving it much of a chance, are you? Like Yuka's not been on. She's just come back to TV after how long? It's been a while. So
I ran into a friend of Yuka Sakazaki's hilariously.
Bruce Pritchard?
No. You got these Japanese friends that I was on the train with, and like with the very, very, very minimal Japanese that I know, I could tell by the basis of their conversation that they're at least talking about her as like a great wrestler. And then I was like, oh, fuck it, I'll just ask him. So I just said like, this gonna sound so dumb. I was like,
It's
hi.
already, this is popping me so much already.
I was like, are you guys here to see Yuka? And he was like, yeah, she's my friend. And she's a Japanese lady. And she's like, yeah, she's my friend. And I was like, oh shit, that's sweet. And she's like, yeah, I got a ticket. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, you watch AEW? And she's like, no. And I was like, oh, but you're, we just had like a quick little conversation. Yeah.
And then you said during Yuka's match, I went to get chicken tenders, and they were $24 for 3 tenders. And then you walked off the public transport. Good stuff. Okay, so again, we're going to get to the main event in a second, but let's talk about the actual main event. Forget the matches. Who needs matches on a wrestling show?
Oh, hell yeah.
My shoot highlight of a genuinely great show. The big man is back. MVP had 3 minutes to make a statement, to make an impact, and he's just, what a promo, what a presence. Did he nail that or did he nail that? What a segment, Ibou. What did you think?
MVP is one of the best promos in all of wrestling. Manager or wrestler. Straight up. Manager or wrestler. He's one of the best promos in wrestling. He's a wine manager, Joe.
Yes, indeed.
Box office feels like a boxing promoter. You believe him. You know what I mean? He feels like a boxing promoter. When he would be with Lashley, my client, Bobby. He just feels like he would sell you on a prize fight. I'll never forget. Joe, when they were doing Lashley Brock, and they never, unless I'm forgetting, they never did a Heyman MVP segment. I remember being flabbergasted. I'm like,
and they're friends too. Those two are friends. Like, Paulie got him his job back in the WWF.
How the fuck do you not have MVP and Paul Heyman talking shit to each other, talking about my client Brock Lesnar is an NCAA champion. He's a da-da-da. And then him being like, yeah, well, Bobby Lashley went to Bellator and he busted everybody up in Bellator. Like, how do you not do that? How do you not do that? Blew my mind. But MVP, like I said, just incredible. I'm listening to him. And I'm like, you're making some good points here. Brother, Hangman Page burned your goddamn house down in front of you. And he's walking the earth. He's on this card. He's not in the ditch. MVP wouldn't let that happen. He'd call his people. And they'd handle that. I'll tell you what, Joe. I knew this angle was going to happen, and I sat in an obstructed view. And so I told my brother, like, we need to get the fuck up. Like, when Nana came out, I said, we need to get up. He's like, no, it's fine. I said, no, we need to. I said, trust me, we need to get up. I said, like, dead serious as hard as I was like, we need to get up. And we got the fuck up, and we walked around. We obviously, like, there's other, like, we walked to a different section and just stood behind the section, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So we're standing, walked around so we could finally see the stage because we could not see the stage. And MVP walks on, no theme, and he's just, hey, and the people immediately sound like, oh!
Yes, they did. Yes, they did, even.
The people were like, oh, shit! The guy around me is like, where's Bobby? I start screaming some ignorant black nigga babble in front of these like old white men. I was like, let's fucking go, my nigga. Kill that nigga. He's a fucking. And when this guy said shucking and jiving, again, I wanted to break the. I'm in front of all these old white dudes in front of me, right? And I was like, he was fucking shucking and jiving. He's a fucking goat. Tell him. Guy around, he just cut. He wanted to like, hey, relax there, buddy, you know. But I was losing my mind. And he gives him the card, and the cards are chanting MVP, MVP. And I'm like, bro, New York, man, like he's just cool as fuck, dude. Like New York saw this dude, and you could tell they're like, yo, this is just a real dude walked up on that fucking stage. You know?
Yeah.
He's gonna struggle to get heat. I gotta be honest. He's too fucking cool.
And it amazes me that people who allegedly know about wrestling did not see this coming. Like, do you realize that he was cutting those promos on WWE TV with the worst dialogue given to him when no one was cutting good promos? He was cutting those promos on WWE TV. Like
2021 WWE, where like elsewhere on the show was like the dripstick and you know
the Lily
like,
doll,
the
LED
doll.
screens around them,
and MVP's walking out there like, you don't want to play with the Hurt Business because my client Bobby Lashley, and you just come off like a beast. And I'm like, that MVP with a live microphone, just speaking in his own words. Are you kidding me?
He is, especially as a manager, because I wasn't a huge fan of his work. Like, he was fine. But as a manager, I truly believe, and I realized this a couple of years ago when the Jericho stuff came out, and everyone was dunking on, like, who's MVP? And I was thinking, guys really don't. This is one of the most underappreciated assets in the game.
Yes.
This guy can get over. Like, I mean, his work, even what he tried with Omos and the way that he presented Omos, like, he give that everything, dude. And in fairness, it was actually kind of working, bro. It was like low key working. Like, Omos last couple of things, it felt like he actually was getting. And obviously it stopped, but
it's hilarious to that joke because like Hunter pulled the plug because he just didn't like him, and like I'm not saying Omos is like fucking, whoever you want to say, but but MVP's so awesome, and the framing that he would give him is so strong that like you just said, it was starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, I saw an interview, or I think he was doing a signing, and MVP said he was like, they put him in there with Brock, and he killed it, and like, look, people can laugh at that, dude. That match is fun, and like he didn't mess anything up in the WrestleMania opener. Like
that was pretty good. Yeah.
And then we had the Seth match, and he did a hell of a job. And I said
that
was
actively good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, all I'm saying is, I think it's crazy that people still sleep on what this dude brings you as a personality in a promo. There are so many alleged good promos in wrestling who come across like total phonies. And this dude is so real and has an edge.
There's a lot of fake good talkers in wrestling, Joe. A lot of people that we have fingers pointed at us, Joe, and we're told that they're good promos. And then this guy, like you just said, he's raw, he's real. You literally feel like, again, it's an overused word, but believability.
Yep.
My God, man, he comes out there and he walked out there, and at the end of that promo, I'm like, yeah, Nana does fucking suck. Fire him and fucking call this guy. Are you kidding me?
That was going to be my next thing. That captures your point about boxing promoter. He was so good at convincing you that you actually, as a fan of Swerve, went, maybe he's right. Like,
like I said, Hangman Page walks this earth. That's a problem. He burned your fucking house down. Nana, you didn't take care of it. You didn't handle it. What the fuck?
If anyone from AEW is watching this, and if you are, God bless, because you're 4 hours in at this point, or 3 hours in at this point, but
it's like the first sincere conversation of the podcast.
Yeah, but Ibou and I, no one else, but Ibou and I want more wrestling that's presented like this, where the way this was framed in the context of the show, it was advertised an interview segment. It was an actual interview. It was a 5-minute segment all in, I think. It wasn't a case of like, MVP literally just walked out, and did you hear you mentioned it? The reaction, he didn't need his music play, didn't need a graphic.
No.
It was actually studio wrestling, but MVP is so great that he managed to transition that and translate that to After Ash.
and because it wasn't a theme and a fucking, dopey seeing like a big dopey graphic on the screen that says MVP or some shit, because it wasn't that, right? You got the old school pop, which was the crowd murmurs, realization, and then delayed reaction. It's like, like, you know what I mean? That delayed type of, reaction.
Give us more of this, dude. These are the angles I want on my wrestling show,
Joe, this was a wine angle.
It was a wine angle. I was watching this, like, this could easily be at, like, WTBS Studios, Yes. Here it is off Fresh Stadium.
And then right at that moment, listen, I'm telling you, this is the type of angle that it would cut back to Bob Coughlin. He's like, I mean, what do we make of that? MVP is just walked on the stage and he's confronted Prince Nana, and he's offered his managerial services to Swerve Strickland. We haven't seen MVP since he wrestled for the WWF in a year. What do we say about it? Magnum, do you have anything on this? It's just
Magnum, that's peace. But two things we should circle. I'm with you. 2 things we should circle before we move on. I love the Jay-Z, the way he started his promo with the allow me to reintroduce myself. That popped me. And also his outline of, are we ready to talk business? And the way he delivered it, where the people went, business, her business.
Let's talk business. And everyone's like, fuck this, man. Fuck this, man.
It's fucking good.
Fuck this, man. Yeah. Fuck you, Triple H. It was
brutal, bro. It was a fuck the Fed type of angle, bro.
The funny thing about that is like, so like, because not that he cut that type of promo, but like, let's say like in the coming week, right? If he cuts a promo, he's kind of like, hey, I'm gonna do things my way, and it don't matter what bald white man got something to say to me, telling me like if you took a shot, right, like in the next week or two, I would just like pull my fist, I'm like, let me go. And the funny thing about it is that type of promo got so passe, like because TNA ruined it. You know what I mean? Like when fucking Mr. Anderson's just like, yeah, you know what? You know what I mean? Remember every TNA shitter was just kind of like, you know, they held me back, and
the worst one was Damian Sandow. When his new gimmick in TNA was just like a guy, like after being a gimmick for all those years, he was just a dude who was mad at WWF.
It's just the thing, and it's like it was just, and mind you, Joe, he cut that when like the push people on WWF for like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Claudio, AJ Styles. Like it's like, all right, dude, you know what I mean? And so I say all that to say that became passe and kind of like dorky, and like a lot of recent releases, respectfully, just but MVP would be the first in a while where if he was just like, hey, fuck Triple H, nigga, I was like, let's go. Like throwing chairs, some shit. I'm like,
we want the show to feel dangerous sometimes and it's fun, dude. Like, but yeah, clearly we loved that. The main event, I really liked. It's got some great reviews from people I really respect, which always pops me. Like, because
I gotta watch it again.
Those matches absolutely happen sometimes where it's just people have a different experience. You know, like the obvious one is whenever the Joe Punk match comes up, there will be people like, "What is the deal with this 3 1/4?" But then some people, it's like a really special thing. You know?
Yeah.
This is going to become one of those, not to that degree, but like quietly, I think it will. And I really liked it. The issue I had, honestly, is not on the wrestlers, who I thought were fabulous. I love both their performances. It seems to me, Boo, that the AEW audience ain't too keen on Boo and John Moxley, and that's going to be a problem, I think, which is sad because he's killing it. What did you think?
I took notice of that. That's really just because John doesn't mind playing heel, but what I've noticed is this is going to be a weird example. Jamie Foxx did an interview speaking about Jamie Foxx did an interview.
I thought you were going to say like The Undertaker or something. You said Jamie Foxx.
Yeah. Jamie Foxx did an interview where they asked him like what was like making Django Unchained. And he said that working with Tarantino is hilarious because in his initial like screenings and things like that, he would be Django and he'd walk up like, is there a problem over here? And, you know, kind of walk around all cool. And Jamie, and apparently Tarantino went, cut. You're too fucking cool. You're not supposed to be cool. You're a slave. You're not cool.
I've seen it.
Yeah, and John Moxley refuses to not be cool. Like, I've noticed this. Here's the thing. Like, yeah, you'll be a bad guy, but brother, like stop being like okay, like I get it, you want to be hard. But like you're too cool, you know. Like, you're too be more dislikable. Like what am I actually supposed to dislike about John Moxley? Like he's just cool as fuck.
Again, and this goes back to the Nigel conversation. The plastic bag thing should make him a heel, but that crowd chanted like he's gonna die or please don't kill him or whatever.
Right.
So that's where it gets hard. So yeah, I guess.
And then it's also that 96, 97 thing of you just did the coolest thing on this show. So it's like, even though you're a bad guy, like I don't see any of my good guys on this program doing shit like that. That's like cool, you know.
Yeah.
The other thing is when the heels are like the guys doing the interesting things on your show, or they're part of the most interesting thing on the show, you get this reaction. Roman Reigns in the early parts of the Bloodline, that was like the only good thing on SmackDown when like this thing first started. So it's like, well, yeah, that's what I'm interested in, and if I were to be in a live arena, I'd cheer that. So that's going to be another thing here, to be honest with you. I think the people that oppose John Moxley are going to have to be over, because if they're not, you're going to have situations where they just cheer for Moxley to kill people. As a match, I like this. It's always fun to see Darby just kind of get ragdolled. He's great at that. But like until I rewatched it, I thought it was in line with all the other John Moxley Darby matches, and they're all like good to very good. You know?
Yeah. I think I do wonder if it's more explosive with a trim. But I did think it was really good, and Darby was spectacular as always. And I think Moxley was. I do think, while I agree with your point, I do think he did a good job of wrestling in a way that did feel slightly distinct. I mean, he's not going to become a different guy at this point, but I do think he kind of ramped up like this sort of spite and edge that I thought made him a little bit more, I guess scary would be the term, a little more imposing, intimidating.
I don't know if it was during a commercial break or not, but it might have been during a commercial break. There's a part of Moxley on the sideline. You know the shoulder shimmy thing that he does?
Yeah.
He does it, but also kind of hops up and down. And I just like laughed hysterically for like a minute straight because like it just like it just reminded me he's from Cincinnati, Ohio. Is the best way I'll show it.
Yeah, he has some interesting quirks. That pole driver he did was interesting. It was very it was fascinating. You know, the one where he hooked Darby and just held him there for a minute and then he went like this and then dumped him down. That was interesting.
That was cool. All right. Yeah.
I have to say, and this is going to sound like I'm doing a bit, because this sounds like a backhanded compliment, but I actually mean it lovingly. But this Marina Shafir has found the perfect role here because I've always wanted to like Marina for obvious reasons, like of course, and she seems cool. So but she's always come off really awkward to me on wrestling shows.
Mm-hmm.
But look, she's nothing else if she ain't cool as fuck, just walking around staring, bro. She's actually like getting like a presence on the show because of and also Moxley is great because he never ever shows any concern for her. Like she'll be fine. And that's good stuff. So I don't know. What do you make of that?
Joe, do you know what Linda McMahon's best on-air role ever was in her career?
Believe it or not, I don't know.
It was pretending to be comatose in a wheelchair and just staring forward blankly. They realized she couldn't talk, she couldn't emote, and she couldn't do anything physical. And they said, how about you just like look straight and just sit in a chair? And she was really good at it. She was really good at just looking forward and sitting down. And I thought about that. I thought about that with Marina Shafir because it was like, all right, well, you can't promo, you can't really emote, but I mean, you look cool and
you can kick some ass too.
You can kick some ass a little bit. Yeah. So how about you do that? And you don't even have to wrestle. You can just do it on the side.
Yeah.
And boom, and she's basically 97 China right now, and it works.
For sure. Darby Allin is something else. I don't know. Like, I honestly think the craziest one he does, I truly believe this, is that fucking drop kick where the guy sits in the chair and he just takes a flat back from the top to the floor. Like,
yeah, why? Like, bro, see, watching that live, I'm like, what the fuck? That's just
Darby isn't even a bump. Like, the crowd doesn't even see it as his bump, but it's clearly his bump, you know?
Yes. Some of the bumps Darby takes, I literally scream like, oh shit, bro, what the fuck? Oh man, like in person when you see some of the I've seen multiple Darby matches now in person, and I just you can't look away, and you're just like, how does he live well? How does he walk around his house? You know, but yeah, I thought it was overall the whole thing there was a good piece of business, and I really got excited about the post-match angle because there was just a lot of like motion happening and things like happening. It was well done.
Yeah.
And when Danielson declared war was exciting. You know what else I came to realize? I realized this too when I was at Collision in Newark last year, which was one of the later Punk collisions. Was because I've never in my adult life been to a WWE live taping.
Wow.
And so I've only been to a lot of AEW shows, and AEW doesn't do conventional American wrestling TV, or at least they weren't doing it when I was going to a lot of those in 2021. A lot of just kind of matches and stuff, right? I say all that to say, being in the building for well done angles is really exciting. Like it's really, really exciting. I remember and this wasn't even like a classic one. It was just a traditional angle, but like I was at the Newark Collision where, God, I think it was Ricky cutting a promo.
It was, yeah.
And
Ricky,
then
Ricky Punk and then Christian got involved, right?
Yeah, I forgot the order of it, but Ricky was in it, Punk was in it, Christian was in it, Darby's in it. And just the theme song cues and people coming out and then saying their things and like getting hot reactions was really fun. Like in the building for that type of thing, even though it's a kind of promo train adjacent, and I don't love that type of thing, being in the building for it, when the guys is like, you know, they say their thing and you're like, yeah, and then dun 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 Darby skates out, you're like, yeah, like it's just really fun. It's really energizing. And being in the building, Joe, you realize why like WWE would open shows with that all the time, because like it almost feels like I don't know how to explain it, but like a warm up for the action. In a way that honestly doesn't translate to TV, to be completely honest with you. Because sometimes when I watch TV, I'm like, I just get right to the match, but it's like to get to the fucking match, you know what I mean? But like when you're there, like it's just starting, you're kind of settling into your seat, you're kind of warming up your body a little bit. And then that's kind of what gets you going. And now your adrenaline's up. And then they cue a theme for a match. And it works. But anyway, I say all that to say that, like, I was watching this Grand Slam. And I kind of, like, wanted some angles. I was like, let's get some more angles, you know? And then so when Danielson kind of just ran out and just said, this is, like, I declare war. Like, it was really exciting. And hilariously, my brother says next to me, he goes, you're going to war in your party. Your soldiers are private party and commander? And I was just...
That was kind of tough. I mean, we both are supporters of Private Party, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's like their presentation has been that they're just, you know.
Yeah. You would think if Danielson's declaring war, he's gonna have some savages on his side, and there's some savages in his roster. You know what I mean? He could find some bad motherfuckers. I mean, bro, fucking Roddy. If Roddy really truly is a babyface, man, I'd be like, yo, you fight with me? You know what I mean? But. I nevertheless, I thought that whole business was fun. And
yeah,
you know
Dynamite was a good show. It's a good show. Go for it.
Yeah, it was. And I don't want to be delusional because it's weird. Like they're all well wrestled, but I don't love any Danielson Moxley match. I don't love any of them.
No.
But like, surely this will be the best, right? Surely.
And it depends on the crowd, bro. Like,
fuck, you're right.
Unfortunately. And I don't say this being an arsehole, it's just the reality. They know there was a time where AEW, like you knew every pape would have a crazy crowd.
And now it's up and down. Like
even now it's town to town. Like which is what most wrestling promotions are. That's kind of just the way normal, you know, the way it goes. But it is a noticeable shift. Like I do think there is reflection to be done. And I say as someone but when I watch Dynamite, I think it's generally a good show and the pay-per-views are always good. But like I do think there's reflection to be done on the sound of these crowds at times. Maybe they're just miking them poorly. I don't think that's the case because I often can see people just sitting there.
Yeah.
But the energy is different. Like I don't, you know, the houses are the houses. Like I ain't my gate receipt to worry about. But you always can tell by the people if like they're into it. And it does feel like more Dynamites than not. I watch the show and I'm kind of like, man, this crowd kind of sucks. That's my personal experience. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, you gotta like monitor that, you know.
You would think, yes.
Yeah, because it's your biggest. Look, dude, let's be honest. Fuck the ratings. You're gonna get a TV deal. The ratings are dumb, but the people, like, they're a good clue as to how you're doing. I think.
I agree. Like literally, look, bro. Again, you know, 0.23 or 0.27. Are you getting people in the building, and are the people in the building like enjoying your angles? Are they engaged with your characters? And if they are, I think you're doing well. And if they're not, that's when you go, okay, like what should we adjust to get these situations more over? That's just the bottom line. That's wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just talk briefly about Collision and that experience for you, and then just kind of your feel on like the event as an event, because that's a different thing, right? Like,
yes,
I thought Wembley was a great show. There's elements of their live event game that I find, just to be completely frank, to be like insane. The way they set the stage for their matches needs some improving for people in the building, to me personally. But nonetheless, what did you make of Collision, and then what was the kind of just general vibe of it as an event?
So, Collision, they began taping Collision at 7:30.
Yeah.
They did They did Jack Perry versus Minoru Suzuki.
John Perry.
Yeah, right. They did Jack Perry, Minoru Suzuki. I told my brother, I said, let's count how many times Suzuki falls down in this match. The answer was 2.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, he went maybe I don't have that exact number. It felt like about 6-7 minutes just not falling, and then he took us 2 bumps at the end of the match. He did a brother finish where he didn't job clean. He got counted out and lost. Yeah. Did a brother.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I popped so hard. Yeah, I was popping my.
See, that's not even a spoiler. That's like a hook. That's like an attraction for the show. I might watch it now. Count out and finish, brother. Let's go.
You get to see Minoru Suzuki fight Jack Perry, phone it in, not fall down, then fall down at the end, and then his fall down spot is what counts him out, and that's it. He took a DDT on the floor and then lost.
Oh, fabulous! So was that what was that the highlight of Collision?
It did make me laugh. I just wonder, like, how many more times can he keep getting away with this? You know, like how many more times can he
forever?
Because now, like he's working even less hard, and now he's not even doing clean jobs. Now it's like I'm gonna count me out.
It's a secret between us. Most people haven't even noticed.
What's up?
They don't watch the matches, bro. They haven't even noticed they don't do anything anymore.
It's yeah. So that was before, and then and then did I just miss you pouring some wine?
You did. You probably heard it, right?
Yeah. I did. Yeah. You motherfucker. They taped Collision afterwards, and I'm struggling to remember what the first match. Oh no, I remember. So I'm with my brother, and I kept telling him, like, all right, listen, we got to see Hanger's match, and then I got to see Okada's entrance, and then I can leave. Because I'm already stressing out about the train times, because they come every 40 minutes, like after 11. So I'm like, I'll try to beat the traffic, but I do have to see Okada. And so it's funny because I'm coping, and I'm like, you know, sometimes in the tapings they tape it out of order, and they might get the big stars out the way first, and then, you know, and they'll just switch it around with editing. And he's like, all right, cool. And then Collision begins, and all I hear is, I am the learning tree. And I was like, fuck.
To them, that's a big star. They get out of the way for you, bro. That's a big one, you know.
Nothing really to say here. Mark Briscoe worked hard, and took some table bumps. It was just a match. New York decided halfway through that we like Big Bill a lot, and we're gonna like just make him like the star of the match. And the best part about it is Big Bill, you can tell he debated, like, do I feed into this or do I stay in character? And then halfway through he said, that's a fucking Collision table, who gives a shit? And so he just starts to kind of like looking at the crowd and putting his fist up like, yeah, Big Bill, you know, like, all right,
good for him.
Yeah. So yeah, that was there. Saraya's Rules versus Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter is so good, Joe, that this match didn't completely suck.
Respect.
Wasn't like
good, but it was fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. She's that, like, I'm watching her, and like her stuff looks so. It's the last, Joe. I was wondering, like, post injury, like, would she get loose? Because you know that happens sometimes, right? It's still snappy, Joe. It's still.
How was the reaction for her?
She got until like Okada, maybe she got one of the bigger pops on Collision. Like her theme song hit, and she got a pop. And then, like, the crowd didn't give a fuck about the match, but out of pure respect for her, you could tell them trying not to disassociate completely, because like they kind of come down, and you can tell everyone like is kind of getting on their phones. But then, like, you'd see like she's getting heat on her, and they're like, all right, let's start a Jamie Hayter chant and like things like that, you know. So it was like respectful, like, cheers and chants here and there. That was fine. What else? My God, Private Party. They had a match with Commander against the Blackpool Combat Club. The big thing here is what's going to happen with Yuta. I'll let people find out what happens there when it comes to like whose side Yuta is on. The match is a solid match, and yeah, I was rooting for Private Party there, and hilariously, someone around me saw Commander and was like, "Who's this geek?" And I was like, "Come on, man."
You said, "Hell yeah, tell him."
No, I felt kind of bad.
I would have high-fived them. Tell them.
I was, my God, you know. But yeah, so I'll let people watch that one and figure out, see what happens there. That's more angle driven. That's probably gonna be the most what's the word I want to use? The most important story development type stuff outside of some other things. So I'll let people watch that one. The Lucha 3-Way was fun. Listen, AEW fans watching the wine sessions, most of you guys will love this. It's what you expect from that you know, hologram and Mortos, and Dralistico looked all right, you know. So yeah, it was a good 3-way. There was a cool post match angle there. There was a really, really horrendous MXM Fashion Week runway deal. This is comfortably the worst live segment / angle I've ever seen at a wrestling show, and I've been to 10 AEW things at this point, maybe more. This was really, really bad and like kind of embarrassing. But some people in the crowd liked it, and other people were just very confused as to what was happening. Some people around me were asking like who these people were and stuff like that, but some people liked it. Some people had fun with it. The security at the arena were popping for it hilariously. Like the confused non-wrestling fan security that were just kind of standing there, like this lady behind me was like, "Why is that man naked?" And I was like, "I don't know, miss." But if you're into male stripping and scissoring and men in speedos fighting and people running out to model and stuff, I mean, have fun.
How long was this segment?
Like 10 minutes. I'll tell you this. I watched that and I swore and everything. I was like, there's no way this is unedited when it gets to TV. Like, there's no way.
It sounds like it's going to be butchered in edit, bro.
There's no way, because they have a long speech before they even begin the introductions.
Oh my God.
Like Monster and Mace are kind of talking like, and that's the thing, New York. When we talk about glamour, when we talk about da-da-da, they're doing their whole thing. And they're doing that for like 5 minutes.
This is where I get frustrated, because it isn't actually hard to get that gimmick and integrate into AEW, but too often their approach is just like, we're just gonna have them do WWE segments, like,
exactly. Yeah. The funny thing, Joe, is they've done a segment like this on SmackDown before in like late stage events.
Yeah, just do vignettes. Do a minute vignette of them in New York,
right?
Walking around dunking on everyone's look. You're fine. Like,
that's no harm, no foul. People find it funny, and it'll totally work. Yeah.
And their matches are fun. Mansoor's actually good in the ring, so it's like their matches aren't bad. So fuck. Oh.
Yeah, they were kind of talking, and the thing is also their comedy wasn't really landing, because they're just kind of doing their shtick live, and like people aren't like laughing, like they're just kind of talking, and yeah, again, there's a lot of murmurs and like people are like, well, what is this? But there is a plot twist in the segment where a man is unveiled in the Speedo, and some people did pop for that, and at the end people scissored, so that was a thing on the show. And I think it was at that point that I was like, this collision is pretty bad. And then like I remember I was like, this collision is pretty bad. And then the luchadors came after that, and that was lovely. I forgot to mention Hangman Page. He faces Jeff Jarrett. I think AEW's fan base will enjoy this match. Hangman Page rules. Jeff Jarrett also rules in his own way. And they didn't have like the gritty AEW strap match. They didn't have the heated, bloody, angry. This is more like pop the families type of a match.
Like fun, like the kind of like it's fun and kind of chaotic, right? That vibe.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Like it just stopped short of like Hangman's ass being exposed and him getting like whipped in it or something. Like legitimately, like that's in line with like the tone of this. So that makes any sense. Where it's like the next step is like Jarrett like looking at the fans, grabbing him by the belt and being like, "I'll do it." Bye, and he's whipping him in the ass, and Hangman being like, "Oh, stop!" Like it was that type of tone, to be honest. But Hangman does try to save face post match. And we do get some new direction for Hangman Page. And so I think AEW fans will enjoy that. That was probably the second best match on Collision, even though it wasn't necessarily the correct type of tone for his character, in my opinion. But it wasn't a bad wrestling match.
Oh yeah. Okay. And then there was your main event was Okada's entrance, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I saw Okada's entrance and I left.
Any notes as we wind down the wine sessions? Any notes in the event? The one thing I'd say, Sam, from watching from home, I completely understand why the ramp was gone because of poor Adam Cole Bay. But it definitely affected how big time it looked. I've got to be real. Like,
I love that ramp, dude. It looks
the lack of stage was kind of a weird look. I thought, I must admit, a big room like that, it just looked strange. I thought, but I don't know. Anything on the event?
Yeah, they made the screen wider to make up for to expand for the size of the venue too. Like it just, I got there and I was like, what the heck? It threw me off, But so that was disappointing. But my overall thoughts on the event, It's interesting because I thought the Dynamite portion of this was great. Was a great show. As an overall experience, getting the Queens, sitting down, watching a Von Erich's tag, and then watching some Collision, and then watching Dynamite, and then watching Tony do the CEO dance, and then watching the rest of the Collision taping, and then being there until 12:15. As an overall event, this is probably like a middle of the pack to lower end AEW live experience that I've had. I like Dynamite in Newark more earlier this year. That one that had the DG Swerve main event, and it also had Darby versus Takeshita, and there was also that 4-way that had like Brian Cage, Brian Keith, and a couple other guys.
Yeah.
That was I thought was an excellent TV, and that was just a great show, and it kind of came and went. Oh, Mariah May versus Avenado was also on that show. I thought that was a great TV. This like as an overall like 5-hour and 23-minute event, it was kind of just it was like solid. I would say it was like solid, where the core part of it and the part that made live TV and the A show was like the heart of this and like the great show.
Well, it's been a growing theory. A lot of people believe that's part of the ticket issue, is that when folks go, they don't want to leave early because they feel like they're wasting their money.
Yes.
But if they stay the whole time, they go, that was really fun. I don't know if I can do that again. And I think there's truth to that, I have to say. And I think your experience probably attests to that, right? It's kind of an example. I don't know.
Yeah, IVP videos about it. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
But like, you finish Dynamite and you're energized, you know, and then you finish Collision and you kind of walk out there and like, you're not like, oh man, like it was cool I got to see Nigel. You're kind of just like, fuck. You just,
you gotta be careful with that, dude. I know you gotta get your content in, but you gotta be careful with people leaving on like an exhale rather than a, oh my god, what a night, you know? Like,
yes, it's big. It's oh man, it's really a thing, Joe. Like Wednesday night, it's 12:30. People walking out of there limping, you know, and just like feeling like they survived something rather than like they experienced something. It's tough. Yeah,
it is. But you know what's not been tough, brother?
What's not been tough?
The wine sessions have not been tough because it has been a wonderful time. And it's just been great to talk to a like-minded professional wrestling fan. We had that one issue with Solo, but otherwise we've just been having a great time. I don't know if there's anyone else I could do this with, dude. We've like it's so smooth. We're just having fun talking graps, you know. It's been really cool, really cool.
The thing about you, Joe, is that we don't like have those dumb internet ass arguments about wrestling or wrestlers and things like that. It's just we can just be adults and we can be mature and we can just talk about things and pour our wine and sit back like the scholarly elder statesmen that we are, you know, and just kind of talk about football games.
Well, I think the key to that is like neither of us have like extreme takes. Like I was talking to a guy the other day and he was saying to me like he did like a thread about why Kurt Angle is better than AJ Styles. And I was like, God, like imagine dealing with people like this, you know, like Kurt over AJ, and I'm supposed to just like sit there and talk to people like that, guys like that. It's embarrassing, dude. And I just love that we never have that issue because we haven't got extreme takes like that, you know?
I mean, AJ Styles isn't as good as Kurt Angle, though.
Like, at what? Like amateur wrestling? What do you mean?
he's just not as good of a professional wrestler as Kurt. Bro, listen, here's the deal. I like AJ.
You being serious right now, dude? Is this really the time for this?
I'm not trying to litigate anything. I'm not trying to. Again, we're scholarly men. We are wine sippers. We're historians. We're wrestling enthusiasts.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to do this, but that guy, like, you know, with respect to that guy, like, he's correct. Kurt Angle is better than AJ Styles, and he always has been.
So this is when you're going to like reveal this to me, that you think that. I mean, like, you might as well have just told me this when you told me all your political views, bro. What the hell? You're talking about, so you realize AJ Styles is still great, right? Anabolic Allen?
Allen's awesome, but like Allen can't do what Kurt did with Benoit at Rumble 03.
Okay, Anabolic Allen or Arthritis Angle? Is that really what we're doing right now? Seriously? The dude who Baron Corbin put out to dust?
Well, that's just poor creative. You know what I mean? Like, that's just awful. If we're being like Joe, like, look, man, there is no version of Kurt Angle worse than the AJ Styles that was tagging with Omos. That's just the reality of the situation.
This is a bit, right? You're doing a bit. Please tell me you're doing a bit.
I'm not doing a bit. I don't think AJ's in his tier.
Tier?
No, yeah, no.
What? Haven't you seen the matches with Suzuki? Remember the guy who doesn't fall down? Did you ever see that match? Or Tanahashi? Have you not seen this stuff?
Give me Angle Nagata.
What the fuck?